Chapter 713. Rumble. In an instant, a terrifying energy ripple swept out like a stormy sea. The terrifying aura caused the surrounding ancient sky sect's disciples to feel their scalps go numb. The two of them were so powerful that it made their hearts tremble. Dang dang. Du Xiaofu and Bai Yichen's figures were pushed back at the same time, as if they were evenly matched. This was enough to show Bai Yichen's strength and also proved that Du Xiaofu was not ordinary. Brat, do you really think that you can fight against the three of us? Fei Qingming shouted. His figure appeared out of nowhere and a dazzling palm print slammed towards Du Xiaofu's chest. In the past, Fei Qingming, Bai Yichen and Chang Qinghai did not dare to attack Du Xiaofu together. However, things were different now. The three of them were very clear that none of them could do anything to Du Xiaofu if they were to fight him alone. If they wanted Du Xiaofu to pay the price, they could only join hands. There was no other way. Boom! The terrifying palm print instantly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. It was as fast as lightning, but it was actually monstrous. Bang! While many people were trembling in fear, the palm print slammed into Du Xiaofu's chest under Fei Qingming's smiling gaze. The golden halo burst out with dazzling runes. You're not strong enough. In a flash, Du Xiaofu's face showed no fear. Instead, he smiled. However, this smile contained a hint of cruelty. With a wave of his purple robe, Du Xiaofu raised his hand. A whirlpool suddenly surged. There seemed to be mysterious runes surging. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist and a terrifying aura erupted from his fist. In an instant, Du Xiaofu's fist print was like a bolt of lightning. It carried the power of thunder and struck Fei Qingming's chest. Bang! In an instant, a fist slammed into Fei Qingming's chest, and a muffled sound rang out. One palm for one punch. This was Du Xiaofu taking a risk on purpose? Walala! Then, everyone saw that there were 13 layers of energy waves in Du Xiaofu's fist. Like a shockwave, they destroyed Fei Qingming's protective qi. Puchi. Under many shocked gazes, Fei Qingming spat out a large mouthful of blood, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking in his chest. Poor Fei Qingming was also sent flying and landed on his but on the street dozens of feet away. Hyuf. Du Xiaofu was also bleeding from the corner of his mouth. He staggered back a few steps, but he was in a much better condition than Fei Qingming. With one move, Fei Qingming was seriously injured. Everyone gasped in disbelief. No one knew that although Du Xiaofu's cultivation was far inferior to Fei Qingming's, the strength of his body was so terrifying that even 10 Fei Qingmings couldn't compare to it. If it was a real battle, Fei Qingming might have been a dead man. Now that they were in the ancient heaven sect, Du Xiaofu had no choice but to be cautious. Of course, Du Xiaofu knew that the two of them hadn't reached the point of life and death. Otherwise, even in the ancient heaven sect, with Du Xiaofu's temper, he wouldn't have held back. Heavenly Stellar Soul Suppression Array. Chao Zhao shouted loudly. 24 array flags condensed in his hand. Those were the perfect 6-star array talisman arrays that he was about to set up. As energy poured in, Chao Zhao's face turned pale. However, there was a sneer on his face. He had successfully bought time to set up his array. Chao Zhao was ranked in the top 10 of the gold roll. He was ranked higher than Bai Yichen. How could he be a simple alchemy talisman master? He was also a talisman master, an extremely powerful one. If it weren't for his senior brother, Mi Zixia, participating in the talisman master competition, he would have participated. Whoosh whoosh, 24 formation flags flew out at a terrifying speed and immediately wrapped around Du Xiaofu. Then, a terrifying and fierce talisman formation appeared. Rumble. When the perfect 6-star array appeared, the wind blew and the clouds surged. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The terrifying aura emitted an extremely shocking fluctuation. It was frightening. Oh no, Martial Uncle Du is trapped by a perfect 6-star array. That's the Heavenly Stellar Soul Suppression Array. It's an offensive array. Although Martial Uncle Du is extremely skilled in talisman arrays and is the champion of the Talisman Alliance Talisman Array competition, it won't be easy for him to break this offensive array in such a short time. The surrounding people were worried. The disciples of the world's society trembled. A perfect six-star array was a terrifying existence. Even a martial royal realm cultivator could be trapped in it. TSK, Qiao Zhao sneered. Inside his talisman array, everything was under his control. It would not be easy to break the array. Crash! At this moment, a golden brilliance rushed out from the terrifying array. It was like the phantom of a five-fingered mountain. There were golden talisman runes flickering on the golden brilliance. There was a strange energy that seemed to be able to distort the void. Whoosh! Within a short period of time, a purple-robed figure suddenly appeared in front of the pale-faced Qiao Zhao like a bolt of lightning from the dazzling golden five-finger mountain illusionary figure. It was Du Xiaofu, who had just been trapped by the symbol array. How could this be? This is impossible. Qiao Zhao's sneer suddenly disappeared. Everything was beyond his imagination. He was so shocked that he didn't know what was going on. Oh no! A sense of uneasiness crawled out from the depths of Qiao Zhao's soul. He wanted to retreat quickly. Whoosh! However, it was too late. A dazzling azure gold light burst out and appeared in front of Qiao Zhao. Qiao Zhao was shocked. However, he was a perfect six-star talisman master after all. He was also one of the top 10 experts on the ancient heaven sex gold roll. In a panic, a talisman rune burst out from his body. He was about to make a move. Mysterious soul eye. However, it was also at this moment that a dazzling light of runes shot out from Du Xiaofu's eyes, directly enveloping Qiao Zhao. Qiao Zhao's gaze instantly turned sluggish, and the runes he had condensed dissipated directly. Swish! The azure gold light burst out and turned into a sword radiance. It slashed across Qiao Zhao's left arm. Crack crack! On the ground below, a long gully extended into the distance. Gravel shot out and the earth shook. The azure gold talisman runes eroded everything. It was overbearing. Qiao Zhao's left arm was cut off. Qiao Zhao came back to his senses and let out a miserable cry. His broken arm was dripping with blood. Even the blood from his mouth spilled into the sky. Qiao Zhao let out a shrill cry. The terrifying fluctuation of the talisman formation that covered the sky faintly started to shake, and then under the shocked gazes of many people, the terrifying talisman formation directly exploded. Rumble! The violent energy swept across the sky, causing the space to tremble violently. It was as if the sky and the earth were falling apart. Countless talisman runes collapsed. The momentum was terrifying. Oh my god, senior brother Qiao Zhao's left arm was cut off. A perfect six-star talisman array can't trap martial Uncle Du. All the Muncha disciples in the distance were shocked and dumbfounded. No one expected Du Xiaofu to break a perfect six-star talisman array in the blink of an eye. He even cut off Qiao Zhao's arm. Du Xiaofu stood in the air with the tyrannical shadow in his hand. The golden talisman wings on his back flapped. How domineering was he? Bai Chen stood to the side. When he saw Du Xiaofu break out of the array and cut off Qiao Zhao's arm in an instant, his eyes trembled. He was actually a little sluggish. Fei Qingming was seriously injured and Qiao Zhao had lost an arm. A perfect six-star talisman array couldn't trap Du Xiaofu. Bai Chen didn't dare to act rashly. He knew that he couldn't do anything to Du Xiaofu alone. Qiao Zhao screamed and quickly sealed his acupoints to stop the blood from spurting out. His face was as pale as ash. He stared at Du Xiaofu with hatred, but he didn't know what else to do. Under such an unforeseen event, there was a faint feeling of silence in the surroundings. This scene appeared too quickly. Before everyone could recover from their shock, they saw the great change in the battle situation. Qiao Zhao was already seriously injured. The remaining Bai Chen probably didn't have any chance to resist Du Xiaofu anymore. Du Xiaofu floated in the air, the golden talisman wings flapping. A domineering aura that suppressed everything spread out. He stared coldly at Qiao Zhao and said, "What are you? You can't even withstand a single blow. If you have the ability, continue to attack. Let's see if I dare to destroy you." Qiao Zhao trembled, his face as pale as ash. His eyes were filled with hatred, but he really didn't dare to move forward. Under that domineering aura, his heart was trembling. "Bai Chen, what about you?" Du Xiaofu looked at Bai Chen and shouted. His body erupted with golden light. How domineering was that? Bai Yichen didn't speak. He stepped back slightly, his heart trembling. At this time, Bai Yichen realized that he had underestimated the purple-robed youth in front of him. This guy couldn't be understood by common sense. Sometimes, the rules of the Manchu didn't work in front of him. Du Xiaofu didn't care about Bai Yichen anymore. He took a step forward and headed towards the few Martial King realm cultivators who were still suppressed by the nets of heaven. There were a total of 6 Martial King realm cultivators. 6 of them activated their talisman weapons, and one of them even activated a primary grade Taoist weapon to resist the nets of heaven. Although these 6 Martial King realm cultivators weren't completely restrained by the nets of heaven, they couldn't escape. Their faces were very pale. Do you really think that I can be provoked by you? Since you're here, then pay the price. Du Xiaofu shouted coldly. His figure appeared under the nets of heaven like a ghost. He activated the tyrant shadow, agile like a flying dragon soaring into the sky and domineering like a rock shaking the sky. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu swept out with his sword. The space trembled and golden light filled the sky. The arm of a suppressed Martial King realm cultivator who was holding a primary grade Taoist weapon was cut off from the shoulder. Provoking me, do you really think that my temper is small? Du Xiaofu attacked again, and the sword light in his hands swept out again. I also have a temper. Du Xiaofu slashed out with his sword again. The sword light filled the sky, and the scene was terrifying. With 6 consecutive slashes, the 6 arms of the 6 Martial King realm cultivators that were holding weapons were cut off. 4th update. Chapter 7:14. Blood-curdling screams filled the air as fresh blood splattered on the streets below. Du Xiaofu's 6 sword strikes were executed without any delay. All the spectators below watched in horror. Du Xiaofu's strength made them tremble in fear. His ferocious attacks today were beyond the imagination of the ancient sky sect's disciples. No one had expected Du Xiaofu to severely injure so many Martial King realm experts. His attacks were so ferocious that several Martial King realm experts were killed. Who else dares to make a move? Du Xiaofu stood with his sword in hand as he shouted. His body was surrounded by a golden light as if he was the sun. His aura was terrifying. The surrounding disciples of the 3 major forces trembled in fear as chills ran down their spines. They looked at the purple-robed young man in the sky. Who would dare to provoke that young man? If it weren't for Bai Yichen and the others, they would have fled long ago. Du Xiaofu, you've gone too far. I'll report this to the elders. They won't let you go. The Manchu won't let you go either. Chang Qinghai, who was fighting with Gu Zong, shouted. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Du Xiaofu. However, he couldn't help but focus on dealing with Gu Zong's attacks. Du Xiaofu sneered. He leaped out and pounced towards Chang Qinghai. He slashed at Chang Qinghai with his sword. The golden sword radiance shot towards Chang Qinghai along with wind and thunder. Chang Qinghai's expression changed. Although he had the upper hand in dealing with Gu Zong, it wasn't easy for him to deal with Gu Zong. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's sword slashed towards him. Chang Qinghai immediately dodged in panic. He used a lot of techniques and finally managed to avoid Du Xiaofu's attack. When Bai Yichen saw Du Xiaofu pouncing towards Chang Qinghai, his expression became serious. However, he gritted his teeth and didn't show any signs of attacking. Du Xiaofu, I'm not done with you. Suddenly, a streak of lightning-like light shot out of nowhere, radiating with an extremely terrifying presence. It was extremely abrupt as it pressed towards Du Xiaofu with lightning-like speed. It was a fist-sized pearl. It was crystal clear and blue. It was like a stream of water as Du Xiaofu's about Du Xiaofu. It was Xiaofu Yichen. Roar. At the same time, a dragon's roar. A dragon's roar. The dragon's shadow appeared in the sky. It was a dragon's. The grade and power of that light ball was definitely not below Du Xiaofu's heavenly net. Sea Dragon's dragon. Is Senior's Chang's dragon Senior Chang Chang, Dragon's Senior Chang Chang. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. They didn't expect Chang Qinghai to secretly activate the treasure on him. Looking at the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl rushing over, Du Xiaofu was extremely calm despite its terrifying aura. The tyrannical shadow in his hands suddenly disappeared. Wang! Then, a golden fan appeared in front of Du Xiaofu in his palm. The golden cattail leaf fan appeared, its overbearing and sharp-spirited curvature seeming like it was formed by nature. Layer upon layer of golden feathers, its appearance was fierce and domineering. It was wrapped in mysterious runes like the golden wings of a great peng, causing one to feel a rush of excitement just by looking at it. As the golden fan appeared, golden light flashed and spread. A vast and domineering aura swept out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Boom! In an instant, golden light shot out in all directions high up in the sky. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. Du Xiaofu swept out with his fan as the dazzling azure ball of light flew over. Hula! As the fan swept out, golden runes flickered in the golden light. It was as if a golden-winged rock had spread its wings and soared up. What a terrifying aura! Even my meridian soul is being suppressed. This is the aura of the rock. Is that treasure related to Martial Uncle Du's rock? High-grade Dao artifact. This must be a high-grade Dao artifact. This domineering and terrifying power caused the hearts of the surrounding disciples to tremble. Even their meridian souls were affected. Rumble! The golden runes flickered, and the golden light was dazzling. It was as if countless golden lightning bolts were flashing. In the end, they arranged themselves in the sky. A golden-winged rock appeared, looking down at the world. It flapped its wings and covered the sky, suppressing the world. At this moment, the dragon shadow on the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl seemed to have seen its nemesis. It trembled and was shattered by the fan. Ula! The dragon shadow dissipated and turned into runes. Then, the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl fell from the sky and lost its original luster. As he spoke, Du Xiaofu took Chang Qinghai's sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. Puchi! It seemed that under the influence of the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl, Chang Qinghai, who was fighting fiercely with Guzong, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Du Xiaofu, what are you doing? Give me back my sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. Chang Qinghai shouted and used all his strength to push Guzong back. He definitely could not lose the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. His figure immediately pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Profound Soul Eye. Just as Chang Qinghai pounced, Du Xiaofu once again activated the Profound Soul Eye. The dazzling light of the runes enveloped the panicked Chang Qinghai, causing his eyes to suddenly lose focus. Hula! Du Xiaofu didn't delay in the slightest as the skyquake fan in his hand swept out once more, and the silhouette of a golden-winged rock flashed out as if it covered the sky and covered the sun. It swept through the sky while carrying a golden light that shot into the sky, and it seemed to have pierced through the sky as it fiercely smashed onto Chang Qinghai, who had just returned to his senses. Puchi! Chang Qinghai spat out a mouthful of blood and his body directly smashed into the messy street. The impact caused many shops to crack and rocks to explode, turning into fine powder and then into gravel on the ground. Du Xiaofu rushed over, the golden rune wings on his back flashing. He swooped down like a rock. The sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl and the Fu Yao heaven-shaking fan in his hands disappeared. Boom! Du Xiaofu's figure landed beside Chang Qinghai, who had just smashed into the ground. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and his face was pale, but his eyes flickered with a golden light. A claw print that was like a rock's claw directly grabbed Chang Qinghai's shoulder. Kacha! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, countless eyes were filled with shock. Du Xiaofu's sharp claw print landed on Chang Qinghai's shoulder, and with a destructive force, directly tore off Chang Qinghai's right arm from the shoulder. Walala! As blood splattered, Du Xiaofu's purple robe was dyed red with blood. Ah! Chang Qinghai screamed miserably. That wail of pain caused everyone who heard it to feel their hair stand on end and their scalps go numb. The entire square was silent, and the eyes of all the onlookers trembled. He directly tore off Chang Qinghai's arm, causing blood to splatter everywhere. How fierce and bloody was this? How fierce and overbearing was this? Although the disciples of the ancient heaven sect competed every day, and the competition was extremely fierce and cruel. No one had ever seen such a brutal scene. Qi! Du Xiaofu threw Chang Qinghai's severed arm into the distance. His eyes flickered with a golden light, and his face revealed a cold smile. Coupled with the fact that his body was drenched in blood, he looked even more fierce. Who dares to make a move? Du Xiaofu shouted loudly and stood proudly. His overbearing aura swept out. Retreat, quickly retreat. The last few Martial King Realm cultivators who were fighting with the 4 6-star talisman masters of the World Society did not dare to make a move after seeing this scene. They all shouted and quickly retreated. No one dared to believe that Du Xiaofu would be so fierce when dealing with Chang Qinghai, Cao Zhao, and the others. He was like a peerless fierce beast. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Everyone was so shocked that they found it hard to accept the fact. Those were 4 experts who were ranked in the top 10 of the alchemy roll. Now, 3 of them had ended up like this. Retreat, quickly retreat. Bai Yichen was also shocked. Du Xiaofu had cut off Cao Zhao's arm and tore off Chang Qinghai's arm. This made him feel a lingering fear. There was nothing that the purple-robed young man did not dare to do. Following Bai Yichen's words, the thousands of people immediately began to retreat. Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, and the other trusted aides gathered their courage and fearfully supported Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Cao Zhao, and the others down. Get lost, all of you get lost. If you don't get lost, I'll teach you a lesson. All the disciples of the World Society recovered from their shock and immediately shouted loudly. They taunted the thousands of people from the 3 superpowers who were retreating. Too powerful. The surrounding onlookers were so shocked that they could not recover for a long time. That purple-robed young man was so terrifying. Everyone knew that this time, Cao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and the others had really bumped into an iron plate. There were more than 10 forces led by the 3 great forces. There were more than 5,000 disciples in total. They came quickly and left quickly as well. One by one, they fled, not daring to stay. This time, they were truly afraid. President, are you all right? Gu Zong came to Du Xiaofu's side and his eyes trembled slightly. He was secretly shocked. I'm fine, just a small injury. Du Xiaofu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve, and a smile appeared on his face. Chang Qinghai, Cao Zhao's injuries are more serious. I'm afraid that the people behind them will definitely come out. You'll be in some trouble, and the trouble might not be small. You have to be prepared. Gu Zong reminded Du Xiaofu. He looked at the large number of buildings and courtyards that were razed to the ground and sighed inwardly. Du Xiaofu slightly raised his head and slightly frowned. Then he smiled and said, I'll make arrangements. Just wait for them to come. President, do you want to take some healing elixirs? You're injured. Several 6-star talisman masters came forward. They could only admire Du Xiaofu in front of them. In the battle just now, their president was so powerful and domineering. No, I can't take any healing elixirs yet. Du Xiaofu smiled and asked the 4 people, Are you all right? We're fine. It's no big deal. A young man said with a smile on his pale face. They were sincerely convinced by the purple-robed young man in front of them. He had single-handedly crippled several fellows in the top 10 of the alchemy list. How fierce was that? Chapter 7:15. Guild Leader, are you all right? Gu Zhangyu, Wang Mingchao, Zhang Yingwen and many others gathered around. It's nothing serious. I have to go and do something. It might take a long time. You guys take care of Tianxia Pavilion. Du Xiaofu said to Gu Zhangyu, Gu Zong, Wang Mingchao and the others. Guild Leader, what should we do now? Gu Zhangyu was in a difficult position. The surrounding streets and shops had been razed to the ground and turned into ruins. Tianxia Pavilion wasn't spared either. In the end, it was also razed to the ground by the terrifying energy. Luckily, all the cultivation resources had been collected early on. Continue to sell the cultivation resources that should be sold. Do whatever you need to do. I'll take my leave first. Du Xiaofu said to Gu Zhangyu and the others. As soon as he finished speaking, he flew into the air and left. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back, Gu Zhangyu and the others were stunned. They could only smile bitterly. A moment later, a strange scene appeared on top of a pile of rubble on the messy street. Gu Zhangyu actually placed 2 long tables on the rubble and continued to sell cultivation resources. He sold the Xinyuan pills and berserk pills that he hadn't sold out yet. As for the lively scene, it was still a sea of people, and people were rushing to buy things. It did not seem like there had been an astonishing battle earlier at all. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu flew into the air and turned into a rainbow as he flew towards Tianmu Peak. On the main peak of Tianmu Peak, Du Xiaofu landed in front of the courtyard and saw his 3rd senior brother Yuanli. "Junior brother, what happened to you?" Seeing Du Xiaofu covered in blood, Yuanli was shocked. Not to mention that this was his junior brother. If anything happened to him, even his master wouldn't forgive him. "I got into some trouble. Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Bai Yichen and Chao Zhao brought more than 5,000 disciples to attack me." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He knew that there would be some trouble this time. To be on the safe side, since his master was not around, he could only look for his 3rd senior brother. Damn bastards. The 4 of them brought over 5,000 disciples to surround. Hearing this, even Yuanli, who had always been rather indifferent, jumped up and cursed. 4 experts in the top 10 of the alchemy leaderboard leading over 5,000 disciples to surround and attack his junior brother. This made Yuanli unable to remain calm any longer. "Senior brother, you don't have to worry. I didn't suffer any losses. It's just a small injury. They are much worse off than me." Du Xiaofu chuckled. He naturally knew how miserable the other party was. In comparison, he didn't suffer much. Du Xiaofu was only slightly injured after forcefully resisting Fei Qingming's attack, but it wasn't too serious. "I didn't lose out." Yuanli was stunned. The worried expression on his face immediately turned into a smile. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "It's good that you didn't lose out. It's fine as long as you didn't lose out. But I'm afraid there will be some trouble this time, so I came to ask 3rd senior brother for advice." Du Xiaofu said. He then explained the general situation to 3rd senior brother Yuanli. There was nothing to hide in front of 3rd senior brother. However, when Yuanli finished listening to Du Xiaofu's explanation, he was also dumbfounded. The expression in his eyes changed as he looked at Du Xiaofu. "You are really ruthless. You even raised a few of the outer sect's business streets to the ground." In the end, Yuanli could only smile bitterly. Then he raised his eyebrows and said, "But it's better for others to suffer than to suffer a loss. I'm afraid that we'll have to discuss this matter properly. The people behind Chao Zhao are not simple. There are many elders behind him. Chang Qinghai, Bai Yichen and Fei Qingming also have elders behind them. Plus, you became the chief of the Talisman League a few days ago. They won't let this matter go. We are somewhat outnumbered." Yuanli's expression became serious. "3rd senior brother, when will Master come back?" Du Xiaofu asked. If Master was here, given his status in the Manchu, there wouldn't be any big problem. Master and some elders went out to do something. It's said that they are looking for something. I don't know when they will come back." Yuanli pondered for a while. Then he looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "We are outnumbered, so we can only gain the initiative by striking first?" "How can we gain the initiative by striking first?" Du Xiaofu asked. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, "3rd senior brother, you are talking about the sect master, right?" "That's right." Yuanli nodded and said, "They won't let this matter go, but they will probably go to the sect master. They are outnumbered, so we can only strike first." "Hee, I'll listen to 3rd senior brother." Du Xiaofu understood. 3rd senior brother's words sounded nice. To put it bluntly, he was just going to complain first. He would gain a lot of advantages. "It's not enough for you to go like this. You need to dress up." Yuanli looked at Du Xiaofu carefully for a while, then smiled. He took Du Xiaofu's blood-stained purple robe and tore it into a ragged piece. Finally, he wiped the blood-stained purple robe on Du Xiaofu's face a few times. Du Xiaofu's face was stained with blood, and his clothes were in tatters. He looked miserable. That's about it. Remember, when you go to the sect master, you have to insist that you are the victim. Act as pitiful as you can. As for the rest, act according to the circumstances. Yuanli looked at Du Xiaofu's appearance that he had modified, and was very satisfied. Finally, he reminded Du Xiaofu of some things he should pay attention to. At this time, Du Xiaofu was speechless. He thought that third senior brother was kind and honest. But now, Du Xiaofu finally understood what it meant to hide one's strength. Third senior brother was simply a high-level spy. This third senior brother looked honest and dutiful. If anyone were to provoke this seemingly honest third senior brother, they would definitely not have a good ending. Soon after, in the main hall of the Ancient Heaven sect's main peak, Junior Brother Sect Leader, you have to seek justice for Junior Brother Xiaofu. Look at how badly he's been injured. It's too miserable. He was besieged by more than 5,000 disciples. This is simply too presumptuous. He has disregarded the sect rules. He must be severely punished, absolutely severely punished. In the main hall, Yuanli's face was full of grievances as if he was the one who was besieged. His voice made people feel aggrieved. This is a high-level outfit. Sure enough, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Looking at third senior brother Yuanli's aggrieved appearance, Du Xiaofu could only sigh in his heart. He secretly admired third senior brother Yuanli from the bottom of his heart. This, Sima Taking Xing looked at the bloody Du Xiaofu in front of him and was also stunned. Based on his intuition, Sima Taking Xing naturally had doubts. However, when he heard that it was Chao Zhao, Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, and Chang Qinghai who had joined forces with more than 5,000 disciples and Du Xiaofu's bloody appearance, Sima Taxing Star had no choice but to believe half of it. What the hell is going on? Sima Taking Xing handed a healing pill to Du Xiaofu and then asked Du Xiaofu. Based on Sima Taking Xing's understanding of Du Xiaofu, who was as shrewd as a thief, should not be someone who would suffer such a big loss. Du Xiaofu then told him about the matter, from the Four Seas gang accusing the World Pavilion of selling fake medicine and finally smashing the World Pavilion. He also took revenge last night and smashed several of their shops. Today, Chang Qinghai and the other three brought at least 5,000 disciples to take revenge. Du Xiaofu did not hide anything about this matter. It was all true. However, under Du Xiaofu's intentional embellishment, he almost became a pure victim. In addition, Yuanli had been helping him. These two brothers echoed each other, and their narration was flawless. Sima Taking Xing had some doubts about Du Xiaofu, but at this time, he could not find any doubts. If he had not been secretly tricked by Du Xiaofu recently, he would have absolutely believed in Du Xiaofu. But even so, at this time, Sima Taking Xing was 80% convinced. Sect Master, something big has happened. At this time, Protector Hao hurriedly ran into the hall. When Protector Hao saw that Du Xiaofu was covered in blood and had an aggrieved expression on his face, he was stunned for a moment. Seeing Protector Hao, Sima Taking Xing asked, "Protector Hao, why are you in such a hurry?" 12 elders came and said it has something to do with Du Xiaofu. I just heard that Du Xiaofu, the champion of this year's Talisman League tournament, not long ago, seriously injured Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Chao Zhao, and the others. Protector Hao's voice fell and he added, "seriously injured," at the end. Hearing this, Sima Taking Xing immediately frowned. He had long suspected that the matter was not as Du Xiaofu said. Sect Master, this is defying the heavens. This is too presumptuous. He must be severely punished. Otherwise, it won't be enough to convince the public. Following Protector Hao's words, a few angry voices could be heard from outside the hall, and many more figures walked in. At the front were many old men and middle-aged men. Judging from the badges on their shoulders, they were the elders of the Ancient Heaven sect. However, these elders seemed to be unfamiliar and did not often show up in the Manchu. Behind these elders, there were also many disciples who were supporting more than a dozen heavily injured disciples. These seriously injured disciples were the Martial King Realm cultivators who had been directly injured by Du Xiaofu not long ago. Bai Yichen was also among them. However, Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and many other disciples whose arms had been cut off by Du Xiaofu did not appear at this time. It was estimated that the most important thing for them to do now was to heal and find a way to reattach their broken arms. For the Ancient Heaven sect, there were countless experts. Although they would have to pay a hefty price to reattach their severed arm, it wouldn't be too difficult. Chapter 716. However, for Cao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and the others, the aftereffects and the impact on their future cultivation were extremely serious. Bai Yichen was stunned when he saw that Du Xiaofu was also in the main hall. Bai Yichen's eyes twitched when he saw Du Xiaofu's tattered clothes and bloodied face. He seemed to have understood something. Du Xiaofu, I didn't think that you would dare to come here. Such a vicious person, I won't let you off today. There were some elders who recognized Du Xiaofu. When they saw that Du Xiaofu was also there, their eyes turned red and they shouted angrily, their faces flushed with anger. Elder Hu, you've got the wrong person. Don't think that my junior is easy to bully because he's young. I'm still here. Your disciple Chang Qinghai brought a few thousand disciples to attack my junior. I'm just about to settle this score with you. Yu Wanli shouted. Since his master wasn't around, he naturally had to protect his junior. Elder Hu was a little taken aback by Yu Wanli's shout. Being besieged by more than 5,000 disciples really felt like bullying. Yu Wanli, what you're saying is too serious. Do you think Du Xiaofu will be fine after being besieged by more than 5,000 disciples? Look at how injured they are. Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. Another elder stepped forward and said angrily, Bullshit, look at how injured my junior is. Over 5,000 disciples attacked him in front of everyone. Do you still want to deny it? 4 of the top 10 rankers on the gold roll joined hands shamelessly, and you still have the nerve to say that. How dare you complain when you're the bad guys? How shameless! Yu Wanli shouted fearlessly. He almost jumped up and scolded them. You! The elder who spoke was stumped by Yu Wanli's words. He didn't know how to refute. In fact, he knew the truth. However, he also knew that although over 5,000 people had attacked Su Imo, there were only over 20 Martial King Realm experts. Even so, they had been defeated by Du Xiaofu even though they had joined hands. It was too horrible to look at. It was shameful enough. Sima Taxing frowned. He walked to the center of the main hall and sat down. He said, All right, with your status in the Manchu, it's beneath your dignity to argue in front of the younger disciples. Let's talk about it slowly. Sect Master, you have to uphold justice. You can't be biased just because Du Xiaofu is the disciple of Elder Gu Qingyang, Elder Hu said. Then he and the other elders beside him, many elders angrily recounted Du Xiaofu's deeds. Hearing the elders' words, Yu Wanli refuted them loudly. However, there were many juniors in the main hall at this time, so it was not appropriate for him to scold them. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu sat down with a swagger after he followed the group of elders and sat down. He did not say a single word and allowed the group of elders to reprimand him for his crimes. Sima Taxing and Protector Hao, who were sitting at the top of the main hall, listened to the elders talking about how Du Xiaofu had cut off the arms of Cao Zhao and the others and how Chang Qinghai's right arm had been torn off. They were shocked by the fierceness of it. Then, they looked at Du Xiaofu with fluctuating eyes. Du Xiaofu, do you have anything to say about what the elders have said? After a while, Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu and asked. Then, all eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. Senior brother sect leader, some elders said that I'm a bully. It's obviously Chang Qinghai, Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, and the others who instigated it. I have witnesses and material evidence. Some people have already confessed. I've also checked their bodies. There are no traces of berserk pill or profound restoration pill in their bodies. Senior brother sect leader, you can verify it at any time. Du Xiaofang stood up and said to Sima Taxing, As for the last injury, it was because I had no choice. I had just entered the sect and was only a disciple on the bronze list. For top 10 experts on the gold list and dozens of Martial King Realm experts besieged me. There were also more than 5,000 disciples who were eyeing me covetously. I resisted with all my strength, so I was a little heavy-handed. It was not my fault. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Elder Hu couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, You have a sharp tongue. You are talking nonsense. Elder Hu, which part of my words was not true? Du Xiaofu looked straight at Elder Hu without fear and asked in a deep voice. You, hearing this, Elder Hu was speechless for a while. It seemed that no matter what, Du Du Xiaofu was right. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu continued indifferently, they attacked first, and I attacked after. It was purely self-defense. They bullied me with numbers. I am the victim. As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu pointed at Bai Yichen, who had been standing behind the group of elders, and said, "If you don't believe me, you can ask Bai Yichen and see if I'm lying. Did they bully me with numbers? Did they come to find trouble with me and besiege me? According to the sect rules, they should be the ones to be punished." Du Xiaofu then raised his head and looked at Sima Taxing. He said respectfully, "Senior brother sect leader, please uphold justice for me." Puff! At this moment, Du Xiaofu's words made Bai Yichen's blood boil. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood, but he also felt speechless. At this moment, Bai Yichen finally understood that there was no way he could compete with Du Xiaofu. This Du Xiaofu was too shameless. When you tried to reason with him, he would act like a hooligan. When you tried to act like a hooligan, he would talk with you using his fists. When you talked with him using his fists, he would talk with you using his reasoning. There was no way to argue with him on the same channel. Sect leader, Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. He has seriously injured many disciples. Sect leader must uphold justice. I'm afraid the elders will also think that Du Xiaofu must be severely punished, elder Hu said in a low voice. Sima taking Xing sat upright. No one could tell what he was thinking from his expression. His glass-like eyes were deep. When he heard elder Hu's words, there was a slight fluctuation in his eyes that didn't leave a trace. I've learned about this matter, but I'm afraid it will take time to investigate it thoroughly. Wait until the Manchu has investigated it thoroughly, then we can make a conclusion. The most important thing now is to treat the injuries of the injured. After a while, Sima Taxing said to the crowd, "Sect leader, Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. The evidence is conclusive. If we let Du Xiaofu go today, I'm afraid we won't be able to convince the public." An elder in his 60s came out. His tone was quite tyrannical. It seemed that he had to deal with Du Xiaofu today. "I've already said that we need to investigate it thoroughly before we deal with it." Sima Taxing said to the elder. His eyebrows moved slightly. He was not angry, but he was powerful. The elder's eyes trembled slightly, and his aura was suppressed for no reason. "Sect leader, you're right. This matter naturally needs time to deal with." At this moment, a voice came into the main hall. The voice was clearly far away, but when the last word fell, it seemed to appear in everyone's ears. Then in the main hall, a figure appeared silently. The person who came had long black hair combed into a high bun. He looked to be in his 80s, but his figure was strong and healthy. His pair of black eyes were tinged with a faint yellow color, which was enough to make people tremble for no reason. As this person appeared in the main hall, the entire space seemed to have solidified, and the airflow stopped fluctuating. This person is so strong. He doesn't seem to be weaker than Master Gu Qingyang. Du Xiaofu was secretly shocked. To be able to control the flow of spatial energy with his surrounding strength without making a sound, causing the surrounding spatial airflow to fluctuate with his breathing, was equivalent to being able to control this space. How powerful was such strength? "Greetings, Martial Uncle Tian Lu." Seeing this person coming, Sima Taxing's eyes moved slightly. Yuan Li also frowned slightly. He immediately stood up and saluted respectfully. "Greetings, Elder Tian Lu." When Elder Hu and the others saw this, they immediately became happy. "Martial Uncle, why are you here today? Please take a seat." Sima Taxing sat down and said to the old man, "You're the sect leader. You should sit. I'll leave now. It won't be long." Elder Tian Lu's eyes swept over Du Xiaofu, intentionally or unintentionally. Then he said to Sima Taxing, "I already know what you're discussing. Since the Manchu needs time to investigate, but according to the rules of the Manchu, you need to be strictly guarded during the investigation. How about this? You don't need to argue. I'll take Du Xiaofu away. According to the rules of the Manchu, put him in the black prison first. I happen to be free, so I can guard him personally. When the reason is investigated, the Manchu will deal with him at its discretion." As Elder Tian Lu's voice fell, Sima Taxing and Yuan Li's faces suddenly changed. However, Elder Hu and the others secretly smiled. Martial Uncle Tianlu, you don't have to go to the Black Prison, right? Yu Wanli's eyes were extremely solemn. The Black Prison was definitely not a good place. Martial Uncle, we don't dare to trouble you with such a trivial matter. Just leave it to us. Sima Taxing immediately said. Humph, Du Xiaofu is so cruel to his fellow disciple. No matter what the reason is, putting him in the Black Prison first is already a light punishment. There's no need to say more. Elder Tianlu said in a deep voice. As his voice fell, he looked at Du Xiaofu and said indifferently, You're Du Xiaofu, right? Do you want to come with me, or do you want me to take you away? An invisible pressure spread out from the old man's body. The space froze. A great suppressive force suddenly spread out from all directions and crushed towards Du Xiaofu. Boom! At this moment, Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly trembled. The suppressive force of the 5 elements was so terrifying that it was like Mount Tai pressing down on him. I won't tell you that I couldn't sleep until now. I got up and finished another chapter. I finished the chapter in the middle of the night. If I wake up early at night, I'll have to pay my debts. If I oversleep, I can only update it tomorrow. I'll cry and count sheep in bed. Chapter 717. Du Xiaofu's body trembled under the frightening suppressive force. The profound qi within his body surged out. A domineering aura that originated from the golden-winged Great Peng secretly surged and resisted the invisible suppressive force. Elder Tianlu's eyes looked at Du Xiaofu. He seemed to have sensed something. Only then did a ripple appear in his eyes. There seemed to be some surprise on his face. I'll go with you. Du Xiaofu lifted his head and looked at Elder Tianlu as he spoke. All right, if that's the case, then come with me. Elder Tianlu said faintly. A faint yellow glow fluctuated in Heise's eyes. Little Junior, Black Prison is not an ordinary place. There will be a lot of suffering inside. Yu Wanli's expression was grave. He was well aware of what kind of place Black Prison was. Only the disciples of the Manchu who had committed a grave mistake would be sent to Black Prison. It's all right. I believe that the Manchu will investigate thoroughly. I have done nothing wrong. There is no need to worry. A smile flashed across Du Xiaofu's pale face. However, this smile made his blood-stained face appear a lot crueler. Sima Taking looked at Du Xiaofu. He wanted to say something but hesitated. His glass-like eyes were deep. After which, he said to Du Xiaofu, I will investigate thoroughly as soon as possible. Let's go. You will stay in Black Prison until the investigation is completed. Elder Tianlu's body had some light fluctuations after he finished speaking. In the next instant, he had already appeared at the entrance of the large hall. Third Senior, I will go now. There is no need to worry. As soon as Du Xiaofu finished speaking, he followed Elder Tianlu and left. Elder Hu and the rest sneered as they looked at Du Xiaofu's back. They were well aware of what kind of place Black Prison was. No one would have a good ending if they entered it. Yu Wanli stayed in the large hall for a while. His expression sunk. After which, he bid farewell to Sima Taking Xing and hurriedly left. Elder Hu and the rest said a few words that Du Xiaofu must be severely punished. After which, they also bid farewell to Sima Taking Xing and left. Sectmaster, what should we do now? Watching the crowd leave, Protector Hao frowned and looked at Sima Taking. Sima Taxing Xing frowned slightly and said, They have planned this for a long time, but they didn't expect that even Martial Uncle Tianlu would come out. It seems that the situation is more serious than we thought. Master was right. It is not easy to be a sect master. That brat Du Xiaofu is really ruthless. This time, he made Chao Zhao and the others suffer a lot. Protector Hao said to Sima Taxing, those people took the opportunity to invite Elder Heavenly Deer. It seems that they will not give up easily. I have said that once they go out, Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai and the others will be eaten up by Du Xiaofu. They are domesticated tigers, while Du Xiaofu is a wild wolf from outside. He is a strong dragon. Chao Zhao and the others are not enough to play with. Sima Taxing Xing whispered. Du Xiaofu was put into the Black Prison. That is a place of great danger. For so many years, only 1 out of 100 disciples who have been put into the Black Prison can survive. Protector Hao was worried and puzzled. Du Xiaofu actually chose to go in with Elder Heavenly Deer. It surprised me. He doesn't look like such an honest person. Do you really think he went in without doing anything? Sima Taxing Xing smiled bitterly. He took a deep breath and said, he knows that Elder Heavenly Deer is here today, so he has to go. He is enduring and waiting. I hope that this kid will not blame me, the sect master. I also hope that he will be fine. I believe that with his abnormal strength, he will be fine even if he withstands for a few days. The cliffs and peaks towered into the clouds, like a dragon raising its head. 5 towering peaks stood opposite each other like a cage. Clouds and mist lingered in the sky, while a black mist faintly spread from the bottomless cliffs below. It made the vision in this part of the world dim. This was a mysterious place. Anyone who approached it would feel a chill in their hearts. Only a small number of disciples in the Ancient Heaven sect knew about this place. The Black Prison was a prison within the Ancient Heaven sect. Only disciples who had committed grave crimes and wanted by the Ancient Heaven sect had the opportunity to enter the Black Prison. Of course, no one would enter the Black Prison willingly. It was not a place for people to stay. It was rumored that no matter how strong a person was, the outcome would be the same once they entered the Black Prison. There were restrictions in the Black Prison. The stronger one was, the greater the backlash. It was rumored that out of 100 people who entered the Black Prison, it was already good enough if one person was lucky enough to walk out alive. Above the cliffs, the vision was a little dim. Du Xiaofu followed Elder Tianlu here. An inexplicable aura came from the bottomless abyss below the cliffs, making Du Xiaofu's hair stand on end. Below is the Black Prison. Before the Manchu investigates your punishment, you should stay in the Black Prison and reflect on yourself. If you can't survive the Black Prison, it can only be said that your life is over. Elder Tianlu turned around and said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu did not say anything. He looked at Elder Tianlu in front of him with an unusually calm gaze. The calmness in Du Xiaofu's eyes even made Elder Tianlu experience an indescribable feeling. It was an indescribable feeling, but it was extremely uncomfortable. It was like the cub of a ferocious beast that had been patiently waiting. It made Elder Tianlu shiver for no reason. Du Xiaofu strode forward and arrived at the edge of the cliffs. He stared at the gloomy cliffs below, where black mist vaguely permeated the air. Suddenly, he looked back at Elder Tianlu and asked, "May I ask Elder Tianlu, where did this disciple go wrong?" Elder Tianlu's eyes flickered with yellow light when he heard that. As if he was rather surprised, he said, "You shouldn't have been so vicious to your fellow disciple. You should have been punished. Do you not accept that?" "Accept he?" Du Xiaofu's pale face smiled slightly when he heard that. He asked Elder Tianlu, "May I ask again, may I ask if Elder Tianlu has entered the so-called Black Prison below?" "The Black Prison exists for prisoners." "Of course I haven't entered it." Elder Tianlu was doubtful, but he still answered Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu still had a smile on his face. He took out a king-grade Xianyuan pill from his Chenkuan bag and stuffed it into his mouth. Then he jumped down the cliff. Whoosh! As Du Xiaofu leaped down, ripples appeared in the black mist. The solid space rippled and a bone-black ripple immediately swallowed Du Xiaofu. Elder Tianlu stood on the precipice. His eyes were a little dazed as he looked at Du Xiaofu's smiling expression. He was unable to see through that expression. Yu Wanli practically charged into the courtyard on Heaven's Eye Peak. He quickly entered his room and set up a barrier. He took out a jade slip from his Chenkuan bag. Talisman inscriptions flickered on the jade slip. "Master, quickly return to the Manchu. Junior brother has been imprisoned in the Black Prison." As his voice fell, Yu Wanli formed a few hand seals. Several hand seals turned into dazzling talisman inscriptions and swept into the jade slip. Ka-ka! The jade slip shone brightly. Then it began to crack and shatter. Finally, it turned into powder and dissipated. In the black space, the vision was dim. Black mist fluctuated and the surroundings were steep cliffs. It was like a huge bottomless pit. Many white skeletons could be seen on the jagged cliffs. They gave off a phosphorescent luster and were eerie. Whoosh! Inside the bottomless pit, a terrifying invisible storm swept across, whistling nonstop. No one knew where this invisible storm came from. It seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Du Xiaofu's body continued to fall. In this space, one could not control his body. His strength was directly affected and he could only let himself fall. The invisible storm in the space caused the black mist to fluctuate violently. In that terrifying storm, an extremely strange cold wind surged into the body. It seemed to be able to cut off a person's flesh and blood like a sharp blade. The cold wind penetrated deep into the bone marrow. It could spread through the bones, muscles, and meridians of the body. Intense pain could be felt from the cells. It was impossible to resist. Du Xiaofu endured the pain that penetrated deep into his skin and muscles. He could not even make a sound. His cultivation and strength would also be greatly affected. The more he tried to resist, the greater the impact he would receive. Bang! After an unknown period of time, Du Xiaofu finally fell to the ground. He could not help but fall on a protruding rock on the cliff. 2 phosphorescent white skeletons were scattered on the ground. Du Xiaofu landed on the ground and took the opportunity to retreat. Only then did he feel that the terrifying cold wind had dissipated. He then looked around and realized that he was in a spacious karst cave. Gotcha! There was a cracking sound under his feet. Du Xiaofu looked down and realized that there were a few scattered white bones under his feet. For some reason, the skeletons were extremely fragile. They turned into white powder with a single step. Sorry. Du Xiaofu put his palms together and bowed to the skeletons. Then, Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the ground in the cave. There were still many scattered white skeletons. The walls of the cave were black, and the sound of wind was echoing in the cave. What a terrifying cold wind! Du Xiaofu looked around. The strange cold wind that permeated his body was still able to penetrate through every orifice. If it weren't for the almost abnormal defensive power on his body, Du Xiaofu felt that his current situation wouldn't be as simple as it was now. But even if his original body was not weak, the current situation was not optimistic. Gritting his teeth, Du Xiaofu formed a hand seal. Then, a stream of light shot out from between his eyebrows and turned into a small pagoda. It was the small pagoda that Zhen Qingchun had been residing in the ancient desolate space. Walala! The runes on the small pagoda flickered. Then, a smoke-like light shot out and turned into Zhen Qingchun's illusory body. Chapter 7:18. Why are you looking for me? Is it because... Zhen Qingchun appeared and stared at Du Xiaofu with his triangular eyes. Before he could finish his sentence, his expression suddenly changed. He turned around and looked at the black fog outside the karst cave. His eyes flickered and his hands moved slightly. Strange runes appeared in the air around him. Black Hell Shield. This is actually Black Hell Shield. Zhen Qingchun was shocked. He seemed to have discovered something surprising. Brother Qingchun, what is Black Hell Shield? It is extremely terrifying and difficult to resist. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly at Zhen Qingchun. The Black Hell Shield is not an ordinary thing. However, the Black Hell Shield here is still very weak compared to the real Black Hell Shield. However, it is still enough to kill ordinary cultivators. In addition, this place is also sealed by someone relying on the Black Hell Shield. This is not a good place. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, "Why are you here? How did you get involved with the Black Hell Shield?" Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and told his brother Zhen Qingchun the rough situation. Sigh, it seems like the ancient heaven sect is not very harmonious. The big sects all have a golden exterior. However, you became a breakthrough point for them to compete with each other. You can be considered as being involved in some kind of whirlpool. Zhen Qingchun sighed softly. Then he asked Du Xiaofu, "What do you plan to do now?" "I have no plans." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Looks like it won't be easy for you to get out. Looking at the layout of this place, it's quite extraordinary. It relies on the black fiendish astral chi to create an extremely ingenious layout. However, it's a bit overkill to use the black fiendish astral chi to create a cage. If this black fiendish astral chi could be used to create an indestructible barrier for the ancient heaven sect." Zhen Qingchun muttered softly. Then he shook his head and said, Perhaps the ancient heaven sect does not have a talisman master that can do this. I am afraid that even at my peak, I would not be able to do this. However, the ancient heaven sect has this black hell shield. It seems like this place is very special. This black hell shield is impossible to resist. Brother Qingchun, are you not afraid? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. Zhen Qingchuan's soul spirit did not seem to be affected by the black hell shield. The black evil gang qi has a greater effect on the body of the primordial spirit. However, my primordial spirit is very special. It is different from the primordial spirit of ordinary people. Otherwise, I would not have been able to survive until now. Therefore, I am fine in the black evil gang qi. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, seeming to be extremely complacent. Besides him, there probably weren't many people in this world that were able to withstand the black fiendish astral qi without suffering any damage. It would not take long for the soul spirit of an ordinary soul spirit to be completely destroyed in the black hell shield. Is there any way to resist the black hell shield? Du Xiaofu could not help but stare at Zhen Qingchun. The old man could resist the strange black hell shield, but it was difficult for him to resist it. Not many people are able to resist the black fiend astral qi. Most people would give up on this idea. However, you do have a way. Zhen Qingchun smiled. What is it? Du Xiaofu suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. Your desolate ancient space is not an ordinary object. After hiding in it, the black hell shield will not be able to enter at all. Naturally, you will be fine. Zhen Qingchun frowned slightly and said, however, this place is not very safe. If you use the desolate ancient space, it will be very easy for the ancient heaven sect to find out. At that time, there will be a lot of trouble. This object is too extraordinary. Don't tell me the ancient heaven sect will not be tempted. Du Xiaofu understood. Then his face turned serious. He asked Zhen Qingchun, is there any other way? Of course there is a way. It is with you. Zhen Qingchun smiled and said, however, this method will probably make you suffer a lot. However, if you can persevere, it will be a great opportunity for you. What should I do? Du Xiaofu looked puzzled and asked Zhen Qingchun. The golden winged rock is the most masculine and masculine. The black hell shield is the most masculine and masculine. It is said that in the golden winged rock race, there are golden winged rocks who seek the most yin and cold objects in the world to forge their bodies. However, only the top golden winged rocks can succeed. Without yang, there is no yin and no yin. Yin and yang are the Tao of heaven and earth, the outline of all things, the parents of change, the origin of life and death, and the abode of the gods. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and said seriously, you practice the golden winged rock cultivation method, which is the most masculine and masculine. Although the black hell shield is not the most yin and cold object, the black hell shield here is still some distance away from the real black hell shield. However, it is just right for your current strength. Otherwise, you would not have the fortune to enjoy it. However, I am afraid that this suffering is not ordinary. Moreover, this is only a legend. I don't know whether it is real or not. The most yin and cold to forge one's body. Du Xiaofu murmured. In this case, if he could obtain the black hell shield to forge his body, he would gain great benefits. You must be careful now. Suddenly, Zhen Qingchuan's voice rang out. He looked at the black fog in front of him that had intensified at some point and said, this place is not a place to hide. Instead, it is a place of great danger. The seal here is changing. When the time comes, the black hell shield will wreak havoc in this cave. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. No wonder there were so many white skeletons in this cave. Some people, like him, had probably treated this place as a safe place, but in the end, only white bones were left. Huff huff, the black fog rippled and whizzed over. At the same time, in the entire bottomless space, the terrifying black fog rippled violently, accompanied by a real storm, like boiling steam. Rumble! At this moment, the entire space trembled. Suddenly, the terrifying black hell shield intensified. Then, from outside the cave, an overwhelming amount of black hell shield surged into the cave, like a wave sweeping over a submerged reef, filling the karst cave. The terrifying black fog formed a vortex in the cave, enveloping Du Xiaofu. The terrifying black hell shield surged out from the black fog. Compared to the black hell shield that Du Xiaofu had encountered before, this one was many times stronger. The vortex of black hell shield spun, like countless sharp blades scraping the surface of his body. When they entered his body, they could cut off his flesh and blood. There was no way to resist. Be careful. If you can't do it, you can enter the desolate ancient space first. The black hell shield and the seal have changed. Zhen Qingchun said loudly, reminding Du Xiaofeng. The vortex of black hell shield in the cave seemed to be able to devour sound. Come on, forge my body. Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth. If he could absorb the black hell shield to forge his body, it would be an opportunity for him to become stronger. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged in the terrifying black hell shield and forcefully activated the golden rock cultivation technique. A golden glow gushed out, causing an indescribable intense pain in his body. However, when the golden glow enveloped his entire body, Du Xiaofu discovered that the effect of the Black Fiend constellation on him was indeed significantly reduced. Walala! Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged in the vortex, activating the golden rock cultivation technique and absorbing the black hell shield to forge his body. The vortex of black hell shield raged and immediately tore Du Xiaofu's purple robe away. The purple strip of cloth on Du Xiaofu's purple gold celestial palace was also directly blown away by the black hell shield, revealing the silent purple gold celestial palace. Under the naked body, Du Xiaofu's muscles and bones could be seen on the surface of his body. They were wrapped in golden talisman engravings and released a dazzling golden light. The black hell shield was the strongest in the Yin. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to avoid it. However, it was rare for the Golden Rock clan to encounter it. It could forge the rock body and nourish the muscles and bones. Walala! In the terrifying black hell shield, Du Xiaofu seemed to be wrapped in black flames and burned. His body looked like it was about to be torn to pieces. Boy, it hurts, right? You must hold on and maintain your true spirit. After 1,000 tempering, you will naturally be able to strengthen yourself. Zhen Qingchuan's illusory primordial spirit appeared in the black hell shield vortex, and his voice echoed in Du Xiaofu's ears. Forge my body internally and externally. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. His hand seals condensed, before he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked. A golden glow erupted from his mouth, as a suction force gushed out, directly sucking the terrifying black fiend astral chi into his mouth. Walala! In an instant, the black hell shield surged and was drawn toward Du Xiaofu's mouth. Swallowing the black fiend astral energy to refine one's body was extremely terrifying and dangerous. Even a true golden-winged great peng would not dare to do so. However, Du Xiaofu was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. He actually did it. Ouch! In the black hell shield, Du Xiaofu screamed miserably. The pain was unbearable. It was as if countless sharp blades were rotating inside and outside his body, penetrating deep into his cells and bones. Walala! Du Xiaofu grimaced in pain. He could feel blood seeping out of his body. His skin began to crack, and pale golden blood seeped out. It was as if his flesh and blood were about to be scraped away and turned into white bones. However, Du Xiaofu's flesh and blood had not been completely scraped away. Under the Golden Rock's technique, he resisted, absorbed, and refined the black fiend astral energy. At this time, Du Xiaofu's skin was cracking and pale golden blood flowed out. However, golden talisman patterns gushed out of the cracked skin and resisted the further erosion of the black hell shield. Faintly, the cracked skin began to heal and became even more crystal clear and strong. However, it cracked again, healed again, and improved again. This cycle began. This guy is really ferocious. Zhen Qingchun was surprised and a look of shock flashed across his eyes. It was said that only the top golden rock could forge their body in this way, but this guy really did it. Chapter 719. If he could go through this ordeal, he would be able to obtain great benefits. He would not be a true golden-winged great rock, but he would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top golden-winged great rock. So painful, so unbearable. Du Xiaofu cried out in pain. However, the golden light on his body and the mysterious runes on his talisman shone brightly. He seemed to be cheering and excited. The black fiendish gang energy was absorbed into his body, refining his body from the inside out. Du Xiaofu activated the golden-winged great rock technique to absorb the black fiendish gang energy and refine it. He realized that the black fiendish gang energy could be converted into Xian Qi and entered his god's watchtower. Time passed. 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. The black fiendish gang energy in the cave seemed to follow a certain pattern. It would only appear 3 times a day, and each time, it would last for 4 hours before disappearing. Du Xiaofu swallowed the black fiendish gang energy to refine his body. He left the cave and sat cross-legged in the bottomless vacuum outside the cave. He opened his mouth to absorb the black fiendish gang energy, causing the black fog around him to surge and turn into a black whirlpool. Over 10 days, the surface of Du Xiaofu's skin cracked and healed, and the cycle continued without end. On the surface of Du Xiaofu's body, the tough golden color started to soften. It made him look even more crystalline and shone with a golden light. At this moment, the golden light in the black whirlpool became denser and denser. A rising aura also started to rise rapidly, causing the space to tremble. I did not expect the black fiendish gang energy to have the effect of increasing one's cultivation. Zhen Qingxuan's illusory body was in the cave. He looked at Du Xiaofu, who was shining with a golden light in front of him, and his gaze was filled with surprise. Time continued to pass. In the black prison, under the corrosion of the black fiendish gang energy, Du Xiaofu's body felt like it was being cut into pieces. However, by relying on the golden rock art, Du Xiaofu turned destruction into nourishment, recovering once again. The cycle continued endlessly, tempering his body endlessly, causing his physical body to become even more tyrannical, and his aura continued to rise. After adapting to the pain, Du Xiaofu felt much better. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged in the middle of the black fiend astral energy, absorbing the black fiend astral energy and refining his body. Closing his eyes, Du Xiaofu did not let out any more screams. There was not even a ripple in his heart. It was as if he had already forgotten himself. Only his body was becoming more and more translucent and powerful. If someone from the ancient heaven sect saw this, they would be shocked. Not only was there someone who was safe in the black prison, but he was also absorbing the black fiend astral energy to refine his body. What kind of torture and torment was this? But Du Xiaofu had actually done it. There's a reason why this guy is so strong. Zhen Qingchun sighed. Absorbing the black fiend astral energy to refine his body was something that only a few top golden-winged rocks could do. But Du Xiaofu had a great perseverance, and a great perseverance to become an expert. In order to become an expert, he was not willing to miss any opportunity. Even in the face of this kind of torture that ordinary people could not bear, he still persisted. Zhen Qingchun was shocked, and nodded inwardly. He knew that after this training, it would be a blessing and not a disaster. It would not be long before the terrifying guy in front of him would undergo a great transformation. In terms of physical body alone, there were few people among the same generation of the human race who could compete with Du Xiaofu. His physical body was enough to be compared to the real golden-winged rocks. If such a terrifying physical body was discovered by others, who knew how shocked they would be? In the ancient heaven sect, Du Xiaofu had not exposed his most important trump card, nor had he completely exposed the strength of his physical body. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Du Xiaofu had not used the divine light thunderstorm and the lightning destruction finger of the divine light court. Du Xiaofu wanted to become an expert, a true expert. This belief was deep in his soul and bones. Therefore, when he heard that the black fiend astral energy could refine his body, Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to choose to refine his body. Being refined by the black fiend astral energy, his physical body endured tremendous pain that ordinary people could not bear. It was as if he had been tempered thousands of times. Du Xiaofu only wanted to become a true expert one day. Just by absorbing the black fiend astral energy, he could also increase his strength. This was also beyond Du Xiaofu's expectations. Time slowly passed. Finally, the rising aura in Du Xiaofu's body reached its peak, and the golden light around his body began to dazzle, like an eternal divine radiance. His aura came to an invisible barrier and stopped, but it was ready to attack. Break! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu roared, and a terrifying and domineering aura swept out from his body, shattering the surrounding black fiend astral energy. The entire vacuum was trembling because of it. Bang! Finally, at the end, a soft sound came from the divine watchtower. From his body, mysterious runes rushed out and turned into a golden-winged rock phantom in the vacuum. Gee! The golden-winged rock phantom flapped its wings, and endless storms swept out. The black fiend astral energy rolled endlessly. But at this time, Du Xiaofu's physical body seemed to have gotten used to the black fiend astral energy and did not feel too uncomfortable. In the cave at this moment, the vacuum shook. Zhen Qingchun seemed to have suddenly discovered something and suddenly looked down at the vacuum. In the vacuum, after a long time, the aura gradually calmed down. Du Xiaofu opened his slightly closed eyes, and a golden light shot out from his eyes, as if there was a golden-winged rock phantom in the air. He broke through just like that. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled bitterly. In just a dozen days, this guy had profited from a disaster and broken through from the initial Martial King realm to the mystery level of the Martial King realm. It should be known that even a peerless genius would need a few years to break through. But Du Xiaofu had done it in a dozen days. If others knew about this, they would want to dig a hole and hide in it. The mystery level of the Martial King realm. Du Xiaofu murmured. His body stood in the air, and he waved his hand, shaking the space, and letting the black fiend astral energy wrap around him. At this time, he was able to get used to it. Du Xiaofu was very satisfied with this progress. Not only had he broken through to the mystery level of the Martial King realm, but his physical body had also become much stronger. This kind of strengthening of the physical body had nothing to do with bone marrow cleansing, but it was equally important, or even more important to some extent. How do you feel? Zhen Qingchun looked up and asked Du Xiaofu. I feel pretty good. Du Xiaofu smiled, and his body slowly descended from the void to Zhen Qingchun's side. But at this time, the black prison could still suppress one's cultivation, and it affected him greatly. I just found something special. There seems to be a special wave below. The wave is different. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu. Is there someone imprisoned in the black prison? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. This black prison was a prison, and there might be other people imprisoned there. The wave doesn't seem to be from a human. I can feel that there are some powerful people imprisoned here, but they should be separated by some kind of seal. But the wave I just found doesn't seem to be from a human. Zhen Qingchun said. Just now, when Du Xiaofu had broken through, it had affected the seals of the black prison. Only when the fluctuations had appeared did Zhen Qingchun sense them. Let's go take a look. Maybe we can find something below. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, and then looked at Zhen Qingchun and said, It might be dangerous. Zhen Qingchun said seriously, This is the black prison, and it's dangerous. Du Xiaofu smiled. Whoosh whoosh. A moment later, Du Xiaofu took out a new robe from his Qianquan bag and wrapped it around his body. The purple gold heavenly tower was wrapped around his body, and the two of them directly entered the black prison. There are seals and seals all around, and they are very ingenious and extraordinary. As they fell, Zhen Qingchun explained to Du Xiaofu. He condensed his hand seals, and the runes in front of him and the black prison formed a kind of resonance, resisting the seals in the black prison. As for the black demon astral chi, Du Xiaofu had already adapted to it. But as they fell, the black demon astral chi became denser. In the dark vacuum, the surroundings were rugged like a bottomless pit, and the vacuum area was getting bigger and bigger. It's still down there. The two of them didn't know how long they had fallen, but they still couldn't see the bottom. Zhen Qingchun felt that the space below began to descend in a certain direction. In the space, in addition to the aura of the black demon astral chi, Du Xiaofu also gradually felt a special aura, which was quite powerful. The main hall of the ancient heavenly sect was full, and the powerful aura was fluctuating. Sima Taxing sat upright in the main hall, and said with a dignified look, "The matter has been investigated clearly. Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, and Bai Yichen attacked first, and they were taught a lesson." Du Xiaofu was defending himself. Although he was a little heavy-handed, being in the black prison for half a month is enough for him to be punished. "Master, you're wrong. The elders have voted that Du Xiaofu was cruel and merciless to his fellow disciples. The chief of the Talisman League should be removed, and he should be sent to the black prison for a year as a warning to others. Chao Zhao and others were wrong, but they were seriously injured, and they should be taught a lesson." Protector Hao stood up and said, "How could he let Du Xiaofu go so easily? Since Du Xiaofu was already in the black prison, he couldn't let him out easily." 1 year in the black prison. Sima Taxing's face darkened slightly. No martial king realm cultivator could stay in the black dungeon for a year. It was already against the natural order if he could endure for a month. If he did not let Du Xiaofu out, something big would happen. Today's update is complete. Chapter 720. Gu Qingyang returns. Sima Taixing's face turned gloomy as he looked at the elders who had already discussed the matter. They were a cancer that had accumulated in the Manchu. Suddenly, Sima Taixing's deep glass-like eyes flickered with brilliance as he raised his head and looked outside the main hall. Outside the main hall, a figure appeared silently. He was thin and slender and looked to be in his 70s. He wore a green and white-colored robe and carried an ancient sword on his back. The old man's white hair fluttered in the wind. A few strands of white hair fluttered along with his white beard. He looked like an immortal who had descended to the world. However, he looked like he was in a hurry and was travel-worn. "Where's my disciple Xiaofu?" The old man appeared in the main hall and asked as he looked at everyone in the main hall. His originally clear eyes flickered with brilliance at this moment. "Elder Gu Qingyang. He's back." Elder Hu and the others in the main hall looked at the old man who appeared outside the main hall. Some of them felt their hearts tremble for no reason. "He's finally back." Hu Songquan and the others looked at the old man secretly. Their slightly solemn faces relaxed a little. They were against punishing Du Xiaofu, but they did not have the upper hand in the elders group. There were many elders in the Manchu who had formed cliques and factions. Du Xiaofu had violated their interests in the Manchu tournament, so they would not let Du Xiaofu off easily. "Master, you're finally back. They want to throw junior brother into the black prison for a year. It's been half a month now. I don't know if junior brother is still alive in the black domain." In the main hall, Yuanli immediately rushed up when he saw the familiar figure. His solemn face revealed a joyful expression. During this half a month, Yuanli had been thinking of a solution every day. He had been waiting for his master's return every day. When Elder Gu Qingyang heard this, his clear eyes flickered with brilliance as he looked up at Sima Taixing and asked, "Sect Master, what crime did my disciple, Xiaofu, commit to be thrown into the black prison for a year?" Hearing Elder Gu Qingyang's voice, everyone was able to tell that Elder Gu Qingyang was furious. This was especially true for Elder Hu and the others. Their expressions all changed nonstop. Sima Taixing smiled bitterly. He stood up and said to Elder Gu Qingyang, "Martial uncle, Du Xiaofu's violation of the sect's rules is not enough to send him to the black dungeon. It's just that some elders of the Elder Council have discussed and decided to forcibly send Du Xiaofu to the black dungeon. We are still discussing this. Some of the elders in the elder group are discussing whether you are the Ancient Heaven Sect's sect master, or whether the elder group is the Ancient Heaven Sect's sect master. In the Ancient Heaven Sect, do you have the final say, or do some of the elders have the final say?" Elder Gu Qingyang's priest, Sima Taixing, did not give up. "Martial uncle is right." Sima Taixing nodded. He looked at the hall and said, "The Manchu has investigated clearly. This matter was not Du Xiaofu's fault. Now, I announce that Du Xiaofu will be released from the black prison." When Sima Taixing's voice fell, many people in the hall looked happy, worried, and complicated. Elder Hu clenched his teeth, gathered his courage, and asked Sima Taixing, "Sect Master, is the voting result of all the elders in the elders group going to be changed?" "Master, Elder Hu's disciple, Chang Qinghai, Chao Zhao, Fei Qingming, and Bai Yichen led more than 5,000 disciples to besiege youngest junior brother. Youngest junior brother's injuries are not light, but Chao Zhao, Fei Qingming, and the others' arms were chopped off by youngest junior brother in self-defense. However, some people think that youngest junior brother's actions were vicious and merciless, so they want to throw youngest junior brother into the black prison. Yu Wanli said to Elder Gu Qingyang, "I see. Where are the sect rules?" Hearing this, Elder Gu Qingyang shouted. His voice was like thunder, shaking the entire hall. His voice billowed, "More than 5,000 disciples besieged my disciple and wanted to throw him into the black prison. Are you bullying me because I'm old?" Hearing this thunderous shout, everyone in the hall felt their hearts tremble. Everyone could feel that Elder Gu Qingyang was really angry at this time. His anger was monstrous. Elder Gu is too serious. More than 5,000 disciples were not besieging. They were just watching the fun. Only 20 or 30 people actually attacked. There were also several people who attacked Du Xiaofu. More than 5,000 people besieging him is pure nonsense. Elder Hu clenched his teeth and said. He looked at Elder Gu Qingyang and his heart trembled for no reason. What nonsense? Is it not enough to besiege him with dozens of people? Elder Gu Qingyang looked directly at Elder Hu and shouted, "Hu Zhishan, is it because your disciple suffered a loss that you want to punish my disciple severely?" Elder Gu Qingyang's shout made Elder Hu's face turn pale for no reason. His eyes lost focus and he was so shocked that his blood and qi almost became chaotic. He could not speak. An elder beside him said after a while, "Elder Gu, what do you mean by that? Du Xiaofu attacked his fellow disciple mercilessly. Punishing him severely is only the sect rules. I only have one question. Who was right and who was wrong in that dispute?" Elder Gu Qingyang shouted. His eyes were surging with anger. Elder Hu and the other elders heard this and felt their hair stand on end. They knew that Elder Gu Qingyang was difficult to deal with and was not someone to be trifled with. Therefore, they wanted to take advantage of Elder Gu Qingyang's absence to throw Du Xiaofu into the black jail to settle the matter. By then, even if Elder Gu Qingyang came back, it would be too late. However, they did not expect Elder Gu Qingyang to come back so quickly. As far as they knew, Elder Gu Qingyang was out of town dealing with important matters in the Manchu. He would not be able to come back in such a short time. Otherwise, they would not have dared to act like this. "Elder Qingyang, the Manchu has investigated thoroughly. Du Xiaofu was not at fault. It was Chao Zhao and the others who provoked him first." Elder Hu Songkuan stood up and said, "Although Du Xiaofu made him lose a lot of Taoist instruments and elixirs, and even defeated his disciple, he had always supported Du Xiaofu." Hearing this, Elder Gu Qingyang's eyes swept across the crowd. His furious expression calmed down. However, there was an invisible pressure that made people feel like he was a dormant volcano. He said, "Do you think my disciple Xiaofu is easy to bully? Or do you think I, Gu Qingyang, am easy to bully?" "Elder Gu, this is the vote of the elder group," Elder Hu said. He looked at Elder Gu Qingyang and trembled for no reason. "Is the elder group more important than the sect master? Don't think that I don't know what you are doing in the dark. Just get rid of some black sheep." Elder Gu Qingyang sighed and said softly, "Actually, it's all my fault. It's my fault for being soft-hearted. That's why you think I'm easy to bully." Hearing this, many elders and protectors in the hall became dignified. "Elder Gu, you've gone too far. Although your seniority is very high, you should know what the elder group represents. Although Du Xiaofu is your disciple, the result of this matter has been voted by the elder group. It can't be changed." Elder Hu gritted his teeth. His disciple was seriously injured, and it was related to their future interests in the Manchu. He certainly couldn't let Gu Qingyang make trouble. "Sect master, nephew, what is my status in the Manchu? What are my duties and authority?" Elder Gu Qingyang raised his head and strode forward a few steps, asking Sima Taxing. "Martial uncle is the second elder of the Manchu. You are the leader of the elder group and above all the elders. When necessary, you have the right to punish any disciple of the Manchu, including the elders." Sima Taxing said. He looked at the hall. His glazed eyes were deep and bright. "I've forgotten that I'm the second elder. When necessary, I have the right to punish any disciple of the Manchu, including the elders. Gu Qingyang softly said. His clear eyes flickered like lightning, causing Elder Hu and the others to feel a chill when they looked at him. Their bodies trembled for no reason. Then, Elder Gu Qingyang looked at Protector Hao and the others and said, Hu Zhishan, do you know your crime? Hearing this, Elder Hu and Hu Zhishan suddenly staggered. They looked at Elder Gu Qingyang and said, Elder Gu, I don't know what crime we have committed in the Manchu. You and the others connived at your disciples to commit outrages and offended your superiors. What is your crime? Elder Gu Qingyang said calmly. Elder Gu, when did our disciples commit outrages and offend our superiors? Elder Hu was not convinced. He gritted his teeth and said, My disciple Xiaofu is of the same generation as you. Your disciples are naturally the younger generation. The younger generation dared to offend their superiors and besiege the elders of the Manchu. Aren't you conniving at your disciples to commit outrages? Aren't they offending their superiors? Elder Gu Qingyang said. Hearing this, Elder Hu and the others were speechless. Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and the others were naturally one generation younger than Du Xiaofu in terms of status in the Manchu. Offending one's superiors was a crime that could be big or small. Hu Zhishan, you and the others were disrespectful to me and did not put me in your eyes. This is your second crime. Elder Gu Qingyang looked directly at Hu Zhishan and the others and shouted, You will be punished for both crimes. Today, you will be removed from your positions as elders and sent to the black prison for half a year. What? When everyone in the hall heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Hu Zhishan and the others stood up and trembled. Their eyes flickered. Elder Gu, you have no right to do this. Removing an elder requires the presence of both the great elder and the third elder. An elder spoke, but his voice was trembling and he looked flustered. Master, little junior brother was sent to the black prison by the great elder. Yuanli was afraid that his master did not know, so he spoke to his master Gu Qingyang. I understand. Elder Gu Qingyang nodded calmly as if he was not surprised. He looked at Hu Zhishan and the others and continued to shout, I will say it one last time. Do you admit your crimes? Elder Gu, don't go too far. Hu Zhishan gritted his teeth and shouted. He was an elder after all and he could not be so weak. Presumptuous! Shouted Elder Gu Qingyang in a deep voice. His voice was like thunder, it made the entire palace shake. A terrifying qi erupted from his body like a volcano. It looked like there were talismans in his eyes. He walked towards Hu Zhishan step by step. The elders on both sides moved back one after another. Seeing Elder Gu Qingyang walking towards them, Hu Zhishan and the other elders also retreated. Their eyes were filled with fear and their bodies were trembling. Hurry up and find Elder Tianlu. Elder Hu and the others looked at each other. Seeing that the situation was not good, they retreated and tried to leave the hall. Stop right there! Elder Gu Qingyang shouted loudly. The entire hall trembled as if it was about to collapse. His white robe fluttered in the wind as a terrifying aura accompanied by dazzling talisman markings spread out. It struck Hu Zhishan and the others like lightning. Chapter 721. Puff 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 puff. Elder Hu Zhishan and the others were all experts, but in front of Elder Gu Qingyang, they were all sent flying. Blood spurted from their mouths as they crashed into the chairs in the hall and fell to the ground. In the hall, Hu Songkuan and the other elders were dumbfounded. Elder Gu, you've gone too far. Hu Zhishan got up. As an elder, he was embarrassed and embarrassed. He was furious, but he was even more terrified. He knew Elder Gu Qingyang's strength very well. Although the disciples under him were not too good, Elder Gu Qingyang's strength was abnormally strong. How dare you disrespect me? How dare you? This is unforgivable. Elder Gu Qingyang waved his hand and the ancient sword on his back was suddenly unsheathed. It swept out like lightning, accompanied by a dazzling sword light. Don't! Hu Zhishan suddenly shouted. His eyes were filled with fear and his pupils contracted. There was a fear that came from his soul. In front of that terrifying aura, he did not even have the strength to resist. Chi-la. The sword light swept past and Hu Jishan's body was directly pierced through between his eyebrows. There was no blood, only runes. In the end, Hu Jishan's body went limp and fell to the ground. Even his primordial spirit could not escape. The entire hall was silent. Everyone was shocked. The elders who were originally with Hu Jishan trembled and did not dare to leave. Their eyes were filled with fear. No one thought that Elder Gu Qingyang would actually kill someone, and he even killed Elder Hu Jishan. It turned out that when Elder Gu Qingyang was angry, he was also so decisive. Sima Taxing, Yu Wanli, Elder Hu Songquan and the others were all astonished. Elder Gu Qingyang held the ancient sword and his body emitted light. At this moment he no longer had the temperament of a transcendent being. Instead, he was like a dormant fierce beast that had been awakening and was about to erupt. Malignant tumor. If I had endured the pain and acted earlier and disregarded the feelings of others, perhaps things wouldn't have turned out this way. Am I too merciful, or do you think I'm easy to bully? As Elder Gu Qingyang spoke, his white hair fluttered in the wind. He slowly walked towards the trembling elders, causing the elders' faces to turn deathly pale. Their bodies were like frightened little rabbits as they trembled incessantly. However, they didn't dare to retreat in the slightest. Elder Gu Qingyang stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. Space was distorted, and there seemed to be lightning flashing in his clear eyes. In the end, he sucked an old man into his palm and held him in front of him, not daring to resist. No, no. Under the incessant pleading of the old elder, his face was as pale as ash. However, he did not dare to resist. This old man knew very well that given his strength, he simply stood no chance against Elder Gu Qingyang. Slap! Elder Gu Qingyang fiercely slapped the old man's face. Blood dripped from the old man's mouth and his body was sent flying. In the end, he heavily crashed onto the floor of the palace, causing the entire palace to shake violently. Many people in the main hall were dumbfounded. Elder Gu Qingyang's attitude today had shocked everyone. No one had expected that Elder Gu Qingyang would have such a fierce side to him. It was frightening. All of you will be stripped of your position as elders and thrown into the black prison. Your sins will be judged by the sect leader. Elder Gu Qingyang said. His voice rumbled, and no one dared to resist. He then leaped and left the main hall. Elder Gu must have gone to the black prison. He's going to bring Du Xiaofu out. Elder Tian Lu will be guarding the black prison for the next few days. I'm afraid that there will be some clashes. As they watched Elder Gu Qingyang leave, the elders in the main hall lowered their heads in disgust, their expressions changing. All of you will be punished. If you dare to leave, you will be severely punished according to the sect's rules. Sima Taxing shouted at many elders who were trembling in fear. He looked down at the world, but then his face turned serious. Many people left the hall and headed for the black prison. In the dusky sky, there were continuous peaks that towered into the clouds. This was the location of the black prison. Usually, no one would dare to come here. The Gu Tian Manchu also had a rule that forbade the Manchu's disciples from approaching this place. Swoosh! In the calm sky, a long rainbow suddenly swept across the sky and appeared in the sky in a flash. Junior brother Qingyang, have you returned to the sect? Just as the long rainbow swept across the sky, a calm yet majestic voice rang out from the dusky sky. Although the voice was calm, it was enough to make people tremble for no reason. I've returned. If I didn't return, I'm afraid that my disciple would be gone. Senior brother Tian Lu, you've crossed the line this time. The long rainbow figure floated in the air. As the light dissipated, Elder Gu Qingyang appeared. His eyes were like lightning as his white robe fluttered slightly. Why do you say that? Junior brother Qingyang, you seem to have a complaint against me? A faint voice rang out from the 5 towering peaks in front of him, causing the space to fluctuate. Swoosh, swoosh. In the distant sky, a large number of flowing light figures swept over and landed in the distance. They were Sima Taxing, Elder Hu Songquan, Yu Wanli and the others. Senior brother Tian Lu, you've rarely walked outside these years. You're too numb and confused about some things. So many malignant tumors have appeared in the Manchu. Not only did you turn a blind eye to them, but you also secretly protected them. You've crossed the line. Runes flashed in Elder Gu Qingyang's eyes. For no reason, an aura slowly spread out from his body. Junior brother Qingyang, you're offending your superior. Don't forget that I'm the great elder of the ancient heaven sect. In the mountain ahead, the majestic voice began to be filled with anger, causing the sky to fluctuate endlessly. Senior brother Tianlu, I think the position of great elder is not suitable for you. Let me take it. Elder Gu Qingyang's voice was calm as he stood in front of the priest. At this moment, everyone's eyes trembled. No one had thought that Elder Gu Qingyang would treat the great elder in such a way. Ha! The mountain ahead was silent for a moment. Then, a burst of laughter resounded through the sky, causing the space to fluctuate. The voice then became cold as he shouted, Junior brother Qingyang, are you trying to seize the position? I'm not seizing the position. I just think that you're confused. You're no longer suitable to be the great elder of the ancient heaven sect. You've caused a malignant tumor in the elder group. I think I'm not bad. I can become the great elder. Elder Gu Qingyang still said calmly. Junior brother Qingyang, it seems that you think you can beat me. Then let me see how much your strength has improved over the years. The voice in the mountain ahead was extremely cold. Suddenly, a dazzling rune light spread out from one of the mountain peaks. Boom! A huge spatial handprint pressed down on Elder Gu Qingyang like Mount Tai. The entire space trembled as layers of spatial ripples spread out. The pressure was extremely powerful and terrifying. As the spatial handprint pressed down, Elder Gu Qingyang didn't move. He stretched out his hand, and a beam of light pierced through the space like lightning and landed on the spatial handprint. Chi la la! The spatial handprint was directly penetrated. It turned into dazzling runes and spread out, illuminating the sky like countless gorgeous fireworks. Chi chi! On the mountain peak in front of them, a figure landed. A vast aura rippled and rushed towards Elder Gu Qingyang like lightning. Elder Gu Qingyang moved. His figure turned into a beam of light. The runes were dazzling, and the two figures collided like meteorites. Bang bang! The collision between the two was like a bomb exploding. It caused the sky to rumble. The spatial ripples spread out violently, shocking everyone's soul. It immediately attracted the attention of the entire ancient heaven sect. What's going on? There seems to be a big movement. At this moment, many disciples of the ancient heaven sect walked out and looked up at the sky. Rumble! The two figures were like lightning, constantly colliding in midair. Runes flickered, divine light surged, and boundless energy fluctuations made people's hearts tremble. However, no energy leaked out from this terrifying exchange. It was as if the two were deliberately controlling the situation in a controlled place. They didn't let the ground below be razed to the ground and cause a great loss of life. Elder Tianlu and Elder Gu Qingyang have sealed the space. They want to compete. Chapter 722. Their strength is too strong, it's hard to see their moves clearly. Too strong, too terrifying. Many elders exclaimed. Even they couldn't see through Elder Tianlu and Elder Gu Qingyang's strength. They couldn't be compared. The intense battle in the sky could not be seen clearly. Only the thunderous explosions and dazzling runes could be heard. Junior brother Qingyang, I didn't expect you to improve so quickly. Come out with your sword, that's your strongest move. Elder Tianlu shouted and waved his hand. His body was covered with rune armor and his eyes were glowing with a yellow light. His attack was peerless and terrifying. As you wish. Elder Gu Qingyang unsheathed the ancient sword on his back. Sword radiance flashed and turned into a thunderous sword radiance. In the sky, he defended against Elder Tianlu's attacks. What a powerful sword technique. Only Elder Gu Qingyang can cultivate the bright saint sword art to such a level in the entire ancient heaven sect. Elder Tianlu is also strong. The surrounding people exclaimed. Although they could not see their moves clearly, they could feel their terrifying aura. Rumble, the commotion in the sky was incessant, shaking the universe as if it could destroy the heavens. The incomparably terrifying aura fluctuations were enough to destroy everything if it wasn't for the two of them sealing the sky. So strong. The surrounding elders felt their hearts ripple as they watched. That level of strength was something they couldn't compare to. Bang bang. Elder Tianlu's figure was blurry and his body was covered in yellow light. His palm print covered the sky. Swoosh swoosh. Elder Gu Qingyang's sword radiance exploded. His sword radiance was like lightning and runes were blazing. His aura was vast and mighty, wreaking havoc in the sky. There was a shocking battle in the Black Prison. However, it was still calm in the Black Prison. Zhen Qingchun and Du Xiaofu were still falling. The Black Prison was like a bottomless pit. It was extremely terrifying and the black fiendish aura was getting denser. That aura seems to have disappeared. Du Xiaofu could already feel the aura, but then he realized that the aura had suddenly disappeared. Someone is spying on us. It doesn't seem to be a prisoner. All of a sudden, Zhen Qingchuan's illusory figure stopped. Then, as if he had suddenly discovered something, his body transformed into a ray of light and burrowed into the small pagoda in Du Xiaofu's arms. Du Xiaofu was slightly taken aback. While he was puzzled, an ancient and overbearing voice suddenly came from the bottomless pit and echoed in the vacuum. "Kid, why are you here? Why have you come to Black Prison?" After the voice sounded, a figure rushed out from the bottom of the bottomless Black Prison and appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu looked over and saw an old man in a loose golden robe. He was over 50 years old and his eyes rippled with golden light. He looked like an overlord. He was staring at Du Xiaofu as if he was searching for something. "It's the venerable golden rock." When he saw the figure clearly, Du Xiaofu's eyes immediately rippled. He did not expect it to be the venerable golden rock that he had seen in the sealed land. He was actually in Black Prison. He immediately bowed and said, "Disciple greets the venerable golden rock." No need for formalities. The venerable golden rock smiled. The aura around him was as vast as the sea. His golden eyes were sharp and intimidating. Just looking at him would cause one's soul to collapse. However, he was full of smiles at Du Xiaofu. The spying earlier disappeared and was replaced by some confusion. "Venerable golden rock, why are you here?" Du Xiaofu asked in confusion. The appearance of the venerable golden rock made Du Xiaofu very confused. Could the aura that he had sensed earlier be the venerable golden rock? The venerable golden rock had comprehended the beastability of the golden-winged rock, so his aura was extremely special. The black demonic aura here can refine the body of the golden-winged rock. "I came here to cultivate in seclusion in hopes of improving the beastability of the golden-winged rock," the venerable golden rock said. "Cultivating in seclusion here?" Du Xiaofu was shocked. The venerable golden rock had the body of a human, but he used the black demonic aura to refine his body. This was not something that an ordinary person could do. It seemed like this venerable golden rock was not an ordinary person either. "Not long ago, I sensed the aura of a breakthrough in the Black Prison. It seems to be related to the golden-winged rock race. Could it be you?" Suddenly, the venerable golden rock's gaze fell upon Du Xiaofu. His expression changed and he said, "The Martial King realm is mysterious. Did you really break through?" Du Xiaofu smiled and said, "I felt that the black demonic aura could refine my body, so I tried to use it to refine my body. I did not expect to gain so many benefits, so I took the opportunity to break through." "You broke through so quickly." The venerable golden rock's eyes were filled with astonishment. He clearly knew that Du Xiaofu had just broken through to the Martial King realm in the sealed land. In such a short time, this little guy had already broken through to the Martial King realm. How could he not be shocked? In this world, how many people had such talent? "Why are you in the Black Prison?" After being stunned for a while, the venerable golden rock looked at Du Xiaofu in confusion. Du Xiaofu was stunned. He then smiled bitterly and said, "Venerable golden rock, let's not talk about this. You committed a crime and were sent to the Black Prison?" The venerable golden rock frowned. He knew what the Black Prison was for. "I'm not guilty. I just offended someone I shouldn't have." Du Xiaofu said. "Tell me about it." The venerable golden rock looked at Du Xiaofu's expression. An invisible aura fluctuated, revealing an unconcealable domineering and fierce aura. Du Xiaofu raised his head and then told the venerable golden rock about the situation. It seems that they are getting more and more out of hand. Hearing this, the venerable golden rock looked at Du Xiaofu. His golden robe fluttered slightly as he murmured, "I didn't expect that after so many years, you would be so bold. You even dared to ruin the hope of the ancient heaven sect. Unforgivable. This is not a good place. You're not strong enough. Leave this place first. It's dangerous down there. It's not a place you can go." The venerable golden rock then looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "I'll take you out of the black prison. Don't worry, I'll give you justice. Let's see who dares to touch you." Boom! In the sky above the black prison, the battle between the heavenly deer elder and the past elder lasted for half an hour, but the outcome was still undecided. In the terrifying light, superpowers were displayed and the beast energy was activated. It was a soul-shaking battle between the two top experts. Huff! The terrifying fighting intent and might caused the many elders of the ancient heaven sect to suck in a breath of cold air. If the two of them had not sealed off the battlefield, the entire ancient heaven sect would have been razed to the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, tens of thousands of sword rays erupted in the sky like thunder. The dazzling sword rays and runes bloomed at the same time. The space fluctuated, and then someone was sent flying. Dang dang! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the great elder staggered back dozens of feet. His long hair was disheveled, and his yellow eyes were cold. At this moment, there was a bloody sword mark on the heavenly deer elder's shoulder, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The heavenly deer elder is suppressed. Elder Gu Qingyang is really strong. Some elders were endlessly shocked. Elder Gu Qingyang was so valiant. Not bad. It seems that junior brother Qingyang has not been idle these years. The heavenly deer elder's voice was cold. As soon as his voice fell, the aura around him began to swarm and tremble. The terrible energy suppressed the world and roared. The heavenly deer elder could not stand being suppressed by Gu Qingyang. He waved his hand, and a thunderous light gushed out from his palm, which then turned into an ancient dragon. Is he going to use his full strength? The surrounding elders whispered with shock in their eyes. Sima taking Xing floated in the air with a solemn expression. His glass-like eyes flickered with light, so deep that no one could see through them. The ancient dragon roared, making people tremble. It was connected to the world, and its pressure was unparalleled. It swept toward Gu Qingyang. Elder Gu Qingyang raised his head. The ancient sword in his hand floated in front of him, and when it left his hand, it buzzed like a dormant fierce beast that was about to awaken. Gee! Suddenly, at this moment, a bird's cry resounded through the sky. The world suddenly trembled as if there was an extremely terrible qi appearing in the world. It really made everyone tremble in fear. Then in the sky, a golden light suddenly shone, and a terrible golden-winged rock phantom appeared. It covered the sky and the sun, and a domineering aura swept through the world. Boom! The terrible golden-winged rock phantom soared through the sky, and its wings made the world rumble. Whoosh! Golden light permeated the surroundings, drowning out everything. The golden-winged pung bird that blotted out the sun easily destroyed the ancient serpent dragon that Elder Tian Lu had condensed. The golden-winged rock is a beast. It's the venerable golden rock. Looking at the sky with trembling eyes, some elders guessed the identity of the newcomer and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The venerable golden rock had left many legends in the entire Zhongzhou. He was a powerhouse that the ancient heaven sect was proud of. He had a very high status in the Manchu. The venerable golden rock has come out. At this moment, Sima taking Xing's tightly knitted brows slightly relaxed, as if he had expected it. He murmured softly, "Did that kid alarm the venerable golden rock? It seems that he's fine." At this moment, Elder Heaven Deer and Elder Gu Qingyang were also looking at the sky, and their eyes were changing. "All of you stop." At this moment, in the black dungeon, a domineering voice rose into the sky and resounded through the sky like thunder. Chapter 723. As the voice faded, two figures soared into the sky from the black prison. Then, they appeared before the eyes of the crowd. A golden-robed figure stood in the air with a domineering aura. His eyes were like torches and flashed with golden runes. The golden-robed figure made people feel like they were facing a huge rock. It was so heavy that they couldn't breathe. His vast and domineering aura was boundless. Behind the golden-robed elder, a purple-robed youth stood. He was resolute and determined. His hair moved slightly and his eyes were deep. It was Du Xiaofu. Greetings, Grand Master Golden Rock. Greetings, Grand Elder Golden Rock. Seeing the golden-robed elder appear, the surrounding elders and protectors were stunned. They then bowed. Even the sect master, Sima Ta Xing, was no exception. He seemed to have expected the appearance of the Honorable Golden Rock and thus wasn't surprised. Greetings, Grand Master Golden Rock. Elder Gu Qingyang and Elder Tian Lu were also surprised when the golden-robed Honorable Golden Rock appeared. They then bowed respectfully. The Honorable Golden Rock looked around and finally, his gaze landed on Elder Gu Qingyang and Elder Tian Lu. He said, Du Xiaofu can enter and leave the black prison freely in the future. Hearing this, everyone was surprised and puzzled. They didn't understand the Honorable Golden Rock's words. No one could understand what he meant by allowing Du Xiaofu to enter and leave the black prison freely. Grandmaster, Du Xiaofu is cruel and merciless to his fellow sect members. He needs to be punished severely. Elder Tian Lu looked up and said to the Honorable Golden Rock. The Honorable Golden Rock roared like a demon god. He took a step forward and said, "Don't you understand my words? As an elder of the Manchu, you should act like one. I see that you have reached a bottleneck in your cultivation and it's time for you to break through. You are now the Grand Elder of the Manchu. Step down and cultivate in seclusion for 20 years. I hope you can break through within 20 years. The roar of the demon god was so overbearing that it seemed as if it was going to shatter the space. The stronger one's cultivation was, the more they could feel how terrifying that aura was. Elder Heavendeer's face was pale, and his yellow eyes were slightly lifeless. He didn't dare to say anything else. The surrounding elders were in awe. They never thought that the Golden Peng Supreme Expert would appear. Venerable Golden Rock's words were tactful. He wanted Elder Sky Deer to go into seclusion for 20 years, but in reality he was directly removing Elder Sky Deer from his position as the Great Elder and forcing him to reflect on his mistakes for 20 years. With Elder Tian Lu's current status in the Manchu, this punishment was extremely severe. Xiaofu, are you all right? Were you affected in the Black Dungeon? Moments later, on Tianmu Peak, Elder Gu Qingyang carefully sized up Du Xiaofu in front of him. He was afraid that Du Xiaofu was missing a single hair. This disciple is fine. I even took the opportunity to benefit from the disaster and broke through a layer. Du Xiaofu looked at the old man in front of him. He knew that his master had rushed back to the Manchu, killed Elder Hu Jishan in the main hall, and fought a great battle with Elder Sky Deer. His heart was filled with warmth, and his clear eyes were filled with gratitude. It's good that you're fine. I heard from your third senior brother that you won 3 championships in the Talisman League competition. Good job. Elder Gu Qingyang grinned, revealing his 2 front teeth. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being. His aura of a peerless expert was gone, but he still looked kind and benevolent. Elder Gu Qingyang's rosy face and clear eyes were filled with love and pride. The disciple in front of him was his pride. He broke through again. Yuanli stared at Du Xiaofu as though he had seen a ghost. He then smiled bitterly. Even Hu Jishan and the others would never have thought that after trying so hard to get Du Xiaofu into the black prison, it would be a blessing in disguise for Du Xiaofu and allow him to break through to the next level. After chatting with his master, Elder Gu Qingyang, for a while, Du Xiaofu left Tianmu Peak and went to the Outer Sect's World Pavilion. The main streets that had been razed to the ground had been completely renovated in this half a month. It was even more spacious now. Under the planning of Gu Zong, Gu Zhangyu, and Wang Mingchao, the World Pavilion was once again established. However, the rules of the World Pavilion didn't change. They only opened 4 times a month. These days, The news of Du Xiaofu being imprisoned in the Black Prison had spread like wildfire in the Manchu. It had caused countless discussions, and the members of the World Society were even more worried. Fortunately, the World Pavilion wasn't affected. On the contrary, after the incident with Cao Zhao and the rest, some factions didn't dare to provoke the World Society. When Du Xiaofu appeared in the World Pavilion, Gu Zhongyu and many other disciples were pleasantly surprised. However, Gu Zong, Wang Mingqiao, and the rest were cultivating and weren't in the World Pavilion today. After learning about the situation in the World Pavilion, Du Xiaofu was relieved. Elder Hu Zhishan was killed by his master, Elder Gu Qingyang, and Elder Heaven Deer was punished by the Golden Rock Grand Master to reflect on his mistakes for 20 years. The World Pavilion could be considered to be stable now. In the ancient Heaven sect, many big things happened in the next few days. Perhaps ordinary disciples wouldn't feel anything, but to the upper echelons of the Manchu, it was undoubtedly a violent upheaval. Elder Gu Qingyang became the Grand Elder of the ancient Heaven sect, and no less than a dozen elders and protectors were directly sent to the Black Prison. Many protectors and deacons were removed from their positions, and many positions in the Manchu were replaced. Later on, news came out of the Manchu that Cao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Bai Yichen, and the other disciples had offended their superiors, acted recklessly, and didn't respect their elders. They were transferred out of the Manchu and exiled. Du Xiaofu won 3 championships in the Talisman League tournament and became the Manchu's Talisman League leader, while Gu Zong and Mi Zixia became the 2 vice leaders. When the news spread, the disciples understood that some of the results had already been decided. The World Association had become the biggest winner. 5 days later, Du Xiaofu came out of the ancient desolate space and learned that the sect master's senior brother, Sima Taxing, was looking for him. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the main peak of the ancient Heaven sect, it was the time for the sun to set again. The winding mountain peaks were illuminated by layers of clouds and mist, painting the distant mountain peaks and the high and low clouds with a golden luster. The cliff in front of the main peak was as straight as a knife. It was as if someone had used a giant axe to split the peak in half. The cliffs pierced the sky, and the sunset glow illuminated the clouds. It was a magnificent and unforgettable scene. I heard that you benefited from the disaster and broke through to the Martial King realm? In front of the cliff, Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu with a strange light fluctuating in his eyes. It was a coincidence, just an accident. Du Xiaofu said with a smile. Sima Taxing glanced at Du Xiaofu. He knew how long it was to reach the Martial King realm from the initial stage to the Martial King realm. Even the most talented people had to put in a lot of time. This guy was simply a freak who could break through at will. Suddenly, Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "About the Black Prison, do you blame me? Or do you think that my senior brother was too cowardly and couldn't protect you?" Du Xiaofu looked at Sima Taxing, shook his head, and said with a smile, "I know that senior brother is in trouble. I think that senior brother must have known that the Golden Rock Grandmaster was in the Black Prison." Sima Taxing Xing looked at Du Xiaofu and was taken aback. The corners of his mouth twitched as he said, "You seem to know everything. However, this time, your master actually lost his temper because of you. It's rare for him to be angry." Du Xiaofu smiled. When he thought of his master, Gu Qingyang, he felt warm in his heart. This kind of warmth was like when he drank with his alcoholic father. The warmth could spread from the bottom of his heart to the whole body. I've called you here today mainly because there are a few things that I want to discuss with you. Sima Taking Xing looked at Du Xiaofu and said with a smile, "Your Xian Yuan pill and Berserk pill have appeared in the outside world and have already caused quite a stir. Also, your Xian Qi practitioner weapon that has been infused with beast energy is extremely popular outside. If you can sell it outside, there should be a huge market for it. My energy is limited. I'm afraid that I won't be able to pay attention to the outside world for the time being." Du Xiaofu looked at Sima Taxing as some ripples flashed across his clear eyes. "Your energy is limited. The Manchu can help you." Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu and said seriously, "Speaking of which, we are brothers of the same generation. I won't be polite with you. The Manchu thinks that your Xianyuan pill and Berserk pill are pretty good, and the spirit increasing powder is a treasure. There is also the weapon forging method that infuses beast energy. As long as you hand over the pill formula and the method, you can ask for anything from me. As long as the Manchu can do it, we will satisfy you. Du Xiaofu did not hesitate and directly shook his head. He forced a smile and said, "To tell you the truth, before I entered the ancient heaven sect, I had a master. The spirit increasing powder, Shenyuan pill, berserk pill, and the weapon forging method were all taught by my master. Without the permission of the sect, I really can't make a decision." Sima Taxing stared at Du Xiaofu. He was not surprised by Du Xiaofu's words. The deacon was curious. What kind of expert was behind a disciple like this? The Shenyuan pill, spirit increasing powder, and the weapon forging method were extraordinary. They definitely did not come from an ordinary person. There is room for negotiation. Shenyuan, think about it carefully. Once you have made up your mind, you can come find me at any time. Sima Taxing stared at Du Xiaofu with a strange smile on his face. He said, "If you want to develop the Shenyuan pill and berserk pill, I'm afraid you alone won't be enough. Are you going to rely on the World Alliance or the Stone Dragon Empire?" The World Alliance, the Stone Dragon Empire. Du Xiaofu's heart suddenly trembled after hearing this. He stared at Sima Taxing. Chapter 724. Looking at Du Xiaofu's nervous expression, Sima Taxing smiled and said, "You are the brave god king of the Stone Dragon Empire. There is no need to be nervous. The Manchu has no ill intentions in investigating your background." Du Xiaofu was stunned. He took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. He said to Sima Taxing, "It seems that the Manchu has put in a lot of effort." Of course. It is not easy to find your background after searching for so long. However, you can rest assured in the future. The Manchu has already removed the traces you left outside. It is unlikely for outsiders to find your background. However, you have to be careful of the Divine Light Court. According to my understanding, the grudge between you and the Divine Light Court is not shallow. Sima Taxing paused for a moment and looked at Du Xiaofu. He smiled and said, "Well, you should think about my suggestion and give me your answer tomorrow. Also, the Symbol League has made its decision. You can go to the Symbol League to take a look when you have time. After all, the Symbol League has a special position in the Manchu." "Okay, I will think about it." Du Xiaofu nodded. After chatting with Sima Taxing for a while, he returned to the outer sect. He handed over some matters to Gu Zhangyu before returning to the Heaven Eye Peak. Tianwu Academy. This kid is actually from the Tianwu Academy. As the last rays of the setting sun dissipated, Sima Taxing looked at the sunset in front of a magnificent cliff and muttered, "I wonder if the rumors are true. Is this kid's arrival a blessing or a curse for the ancient heaven sect?" At night, Du Xiaofu returned to the Heaven Eye Peak and entered the ancient desolate space. It seems that the ancient heaven sect has their eyes on the Shenyuan pill and the berserker pill. However, their more important target should be the spirit increasing powder and the refining method left behind by your master, the venerable weapon. Zhen Qingchuan's eyes moved slightly on his illusory face. "That is why I came to ask for your opinion. If I am not willing, I believe the ancient heaven sect will not make things difficult for me." Du Xiaofu said, "That depends on how ambitious you are." Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and said softly, "If you are not too ambitious, you do not need to care about the ancient heaven sect. The pill formula Taxing Qingchun, I will listen to you." Du Xiaofu said to Zhen Qingchun, "Kid, if you are not ambitious, why do you care about the World Pavilion? If you are not ambitious, how would you have the World Alliance?" Zhen Qingchun glanced at Du Xiaofu and said, "Du Xiaofu, is Qingchuan zesses? Is in is NDA? Is. Actually, the profound origin pill and berserk pill recipes are not that big of a deal. You can give them to the ancient heaven sect, but you must sell them for a good price. You cannot let the ancient heaven sect take advantage of you." Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and sternly said, "However, the spirit increase powder is too precious, so you can't reveal it so easily. It'll be a great trump card for you in the future, and it'll give you a sliver of power to resist the ancient heaven sect. The more ambitious you are, the more trump cards you have. What do you mean, Brother Qingchun? Looking at Zhen Qingchun, Du Xiaofu was slightly taken aback. Zhen Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, "Stop pretending in front of me. Follow your heart. Just don't lose out." "Thank you, Brother Qingchun. You are my real brother, even closer than my real brother." Du Xiaofu smiled, his face full of smiles. The next morning, Du Xiaofu went to the main peak of Manchu again. In the side hall, Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu. His eyes flashed without leaving a trace as he said, "Have you thought about it? I really cannot take out the spirit-increasing powders recipe and refining method, but I can discuss the profound origin pill and berserk pill recipes." Du Xiaofu said, "You cannot take out the spirit-increasing powder and refining method?" Sima Taxing frowned slightly. Then he looked at Du Xiaofu and said with a smile, "It's good that you can discuss it. What do you want?" "A batch of cultivation resources, profound origin pill and berserk pill. I want 30% of the profits from the outside world unconditionally. In addition, I want 10 Taoist weapons, 50 high-grade Taoist weapons, 100 middle-grade Taoist weapons, 500 low-grade Taoist weapons, and 3,000 spiritual weapons." Du Xiaofu said. Hearing this, Sima Taxing immediately stood up and looked straight at Du Xiaofu. His glass-like eyes seemed to be about to pop out. He said, "Boy, are you kidding me? You only took out 2 pill formulas, that's absolutely impossible. The price of the Shen Yuan pill and the berserk pill is already 3 times that of the same level of pills. In the ancient heaven sect, the price can already be increased by dozens of times. However, the starting cost is not high. The profit is huge, and the popularity of the pills has already been proven. The profound origin pill and berserk pill recipes are also very special. They have no grades. The higher the quality of the main ingredients, the higher the grade of the pill." Du Xiaofu said to Sima Taxing seriously, "That won't do. You are asking for too much." Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu and shook his head. This boy was asking for too much. He was even more ruthless than him. "Then forget it." Du Xiaofu recorded his words and immediately turned to leave. "Boy, stop right there." Sima Taxing was taken aback. He gritted his teeth and immediately stopped Du Xiaofu. He said, "Let's discuss." "Of course there is room for discussion. We can have a good discussion, but your request is too high. It must be lower." Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment. He turned around and said to Sima Taxing, "My request is already very low. It can't be lower, but we can still discuss it." Soon after, from early morning to early afternoon, there were sounds of argument coming out from the side hall for half a day. "They won't fight, right?" Protector Hao had been waiting quietly by the side outside the side hall. He could not help but worry that the 2 people inside would have the impulse to fight when he heard the loud shouts that occasionally rang out from within the side hall. However, Protector Hao could only smile bitterly. In this world, how many people of the younger generation could be like Du Xiaofu, who could negotiate with the dignified ancient heaven sect's sect master, Sima Ta-Xing, in a side hall until his face and neck were red? "Okay, then it's a deal. I can give you the pill recipes for the Shen Yuan pill and the berserk pill. In the future, I will provide the ancient heaven sect with the spirit-increasing powder for 100 spirit symbol masters every year, but the price cannot be low. Even blood brothers have to settle accounts clearly. I can also provide the refining method." Du Xiaofu squatted on the ground of the side hall and used a dagger in his hand to carve many numbers and lines on the ground. He pointed everywhere and said to Sima Taxing, who was also squatting on the ground with a red face, "But the ancient heaven sect must not give me any less cultivation resources. In addition, 5 middle-grade Dao treasures, 20 initial-grade Dao treasures, 100 high-grade Dao treasures, 200 middle-grade Dao treasures, 1,000 initial-grade Dao treasures, and 5,000 spirit treasures. In the future, I will receive 30% of the Shen Yuan pills and berserk pills. I can agree to other things, but you can only get 10% of the benefits from the Shen Yuan pills and berserk pills. Otherwise, there is no need to talk about it." Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu with a red face. If it wasn't for the fact that he was the sect master of the ancient heaven sect, he would have wanted to kill this little vampire before him. No need to talk then. Du Xiaofu did not budge an inch. You are still a disciple of the ancient heaven sect. Brat, no matter what, I am still your senior brother and the sect master of the ancient heaven sect. You really won't give me any face? Sima Taxing's glass-like eyes were red. It was as if the two of them were not having a discussion, but were having a battle. Even blood brothers have to settle accounts clearly. Du Xiaofu did not back down. He stared at Sima Taxing and said, "If I wasn't a disciple of the ancient heaven sect and you weren't my senior brother, I wouldn't have been able to provide the spirit increasing powder, the refining method to fuse beast energy, or the pill recipes for the Xianyuan pills and berserk pills. For the sake of your master's love and protection, I will give you less. You should also give me some face." Sima Taxing glared at Du Xiaofu like a fighting cock. Unfortunately, no one could see this scene. 20%, at most 20%. This is my bottom line. If it really doesn't work, then I have no other choice. Du Xiaofu cursed in his heart. This sect master was really shameless. He was using his master to pressure him at this time. Sima Taxing fiercely gritted his teeth. He felt that he could not go any further, so he could only nod. After all, the spirit increasing powder and the refining method were extremely important to the development of the entire ancient heaven sect. Chapter 725. Okay, deal. Du Xiaofu smiled. That batch of cultivation resources was quite a lot. With that batch of cultivation resources, it would be of great use to him. Prepare the spirit increasing powder as soon as possible, as well as the refining method and the pill recipes for the berserk pill and the profound origin pill, Sima Taxing said to Du Xiaofu. Give me the cultivation resources in 10 days. I'll also send the pill recipes and the refining method. Du Xiaofu chuckled and said, however, 100 spirit increasing powder for a year is not a small amount. The Manchu must first give me some materials, and then we'll settle the accounts. You can go to the Manchu to get the materials. If there's nothing else, you can go back and prepare. Sima Taxing waved his hand. He really didn't want to stay with this brat any longer. Du Xiaofu smiled and left. He was quite satisfied with the result. With Du Xiaofu's departure, Protector Hao walked into the side hall. He looked at the lines and numbers carved on the ground as well as the sect master Sima Taxing's flushed face. He said, "Sect master, how was your talk with that kid?" "That little bastard is simply a pain in the ass, a vampire," Sima Taxing scolded. At this moment, he didn't have much of the image of the ancient heaven sect's sect master. He then told Protector Hao about Du Xiaofu's conditions. "That brat is really ruthless. He's a living pain in the ass." After hearing Sima Taxing's words, Protector Hao couldn't help but curse. He then frowned and said, "Sect master, that brat wants so many cultivation resources. He should be leaving them for the so-called World Alliance. It seems that brat's ambition isn't small. Not only is he ambitious, but he also has the strength and boldness. I've also heard of the Dark Forest. It's not an ordinary place. That brat is able to control the Dark Forest at such a young age. It seems that he has already shown mercy to Cao Zhao's group." Sima Taxing sighed and then said to Protector Hao, "Prepare those cultivation resources. That brat is someone who won't act unless he sees a rabbit. If we don't see these cultivation resources, I'm afraid he won't take out the pill recipes and spirit increasing powder we want. So many cultivation resources, it seems that he doesn't have much intention of staying in our ancient heaven sect." Protector Hao frowned and he was quite a bit of worry. Moreover, he's the brave god of the Stone Dragon Empire. And most importantly, he is a disciple of Tianwu Academy. A small Stone Dragon Empire can't keep him. I didn't expect that after so many years, the last bit of Tianwu Academy's legacy would be destroyed. I'm afraid the person who did this is after that item." Sima Taxing sighed. Light flickered in Protector Hao's eyes as he said, "It seems that some people don't care about the legends that have been passed down. Give all the cultivation resources to that brat. The central continent has been in turmoil these years. If the Heaven Alliance can really develop in the future, it will be beneficial to the Ancient Heaven sect. After all, that Brad is still a disciple of our Ancient Heaven sect. If the Heaven Alliance can really achieve something, it will be beneficial to our Ancient Heaven sect. Sima Taxing said after a while. After leaving the Manchu's main peak, Du Xiaofu went directly to the World Pavilion and met with Gu Zong, Wang Mingqiao, and the others. After everyone sat down, they exchanged some pleasantries. Then, Du Xiaofu handed over the many pills and spirit artifacts that he had refined in the past few days to everyone. Then, he informed everyone that he would be going into seclusion for 10 days. President, now that the Talisman League has been decided and you are the chief of the Talisman League, it's time for you to take a look around and meet all the members, Gu Zong said to Du Xiaofu. I don't have much time these days. You can decide the matters of the Talisman League. It's enough to have you here. Du Xiaofu thought for a while and said to Gu Zong. With Gu Zong as one of the deputy chiefs, the World Pavilion wouldn't suffer any losses. As for the benefits of the Talisman League, Du Xiaofu didn't think too much about it. He was afraid that the Manchu would pay attention to what benefits he wanted from the Talisman League after he settled accounts with his senior brother. It was best that he didn't get involved in that. After all, his position as the chief of the Talisman League was just a title. All right. Gu Zong could only nod when he saw that Du Xiaofu wasn't interested. The next day was the opening day of the World Pavilion. There was a sea of people and it was unusually popular. It was the most abundant cultivation resources ever. Some time ago, Du Xiaofu had swept through more than a dozen trading companies. At this time, all of them were taken out and sold by Du Xiaofu. Of course, he still kept some if necessary. Someone complained to the Manchu about the looting of the trading companies, but in the end, no one could find any evidence. The people of the trading companies didn't even see with their own eyes who looted everything from the trading companies. The World Pavilion didn't admit it either. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. Moreover, no one dared to provoke Du Xiaofu at this time. They could only swallow the bitter fruit in silence. On this day, Du Xiaofu entered the ancient desolate space again. The amount of spirit-increasing powder used by 100 talisman masters in a year wasn't a small amount and required a lot of time to refine. More importantly, for the sake of the World Pavilion, Du Xiaofu had to refine some other cultivation resources. As for the pill formulas for the Profound Essence Pill and Berserker Pill, he had already sold them to the Ancient Heaven sect. He also hoped to go back early and see Du Xiaoqing and Little Tiger when he returned. He hoped that Du Xiaoyao was safe and sound. Go early and come back early. Don't delay on the way and come back early. With your current cultivation, the ancient silver space and ancient gold space are suitable for you, Elder Gu Qingyang said. Du Xiaofu nodded. This time, he also planned to return to the Ancient Heaven sect and continue to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. The most important thing now was to improve his cultivation and strength. The next morning, the light of dawn lifted the veil of the night sky. It was like a sharp sword of light, splitting the night sky apart and spitting out brilliant morning light. Whoosh whoosh, two figures flew across the sky above the mountains and left the Ancient Heaven sect. The mountains were connected as the morning sun poured down. In mid-air, two figures flew across like rainbows. Thank you, third senior brother. In mid-air, Du Xiaofu's figure flew across the sky and thanked his third senior brother Yuanli. Little junior brother, you're too polite. It's rare for me to go out. Master has never allowed me to go out. Yuanli smiled. It was rare for him to go out. This time, he did not have many chances to go out because he was escorting his little junior brother. Why? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. With his third senior brother Yuanli's identity, he should be able to leave the sect at any time. Yuanli smiled bitterly and said, Little junior brother, you don't know. Master thinks that my cultivation is not strong enough and usually doesn't allow me to leave the sect, lest I embarrass him. Today's update is complete. Chapter 726. The distance from the Ancient Heaven sect to the Dark Forest was not short. However, with Du Xiaofu and Yuanli's cultivation and speed, they were also extremely fast. Naturally, they did not encounter any trouble. In the sky above the mountain range, they would occasionally encounter some groups and escort agencies. However, when they sensed Du Xiaofu and Yu Wanli's aura, they would avoid them. They did not dare to get close to them. Therefore, in less than 7 days, Du Xiaofu and Yu Wanli had arrived at the bank of the Central Province's Long River again. They had to pass through the 8,000 miles of Zhong Province Long River and millions of mountains before they could be considered to be in the dark forest. Along the way, Du Xiaofu and third senior brother Yu Wanli kept each other company, chatting and laughing, causing the relationship between these two senior brothers to improve greatly. The 8,000 miles of Zhong Province Long River was vast, and there was a fishy and salty smell in the air. Looking from afar, the water was boundless and vast. It was as if there was a line between the sea and the sky. It made people feel small. Little junior brother, according to what you said, your sister might have entered an ancient seal. It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse. You don't have to worry too much, Yu Wanli said to Du Xiaofu. Not long ago, Du Xiaofu had told his third senior brother everything that had happened in the Zhong Province Long River. Now that they were back at the Zhong Province Long River, Du Xiaofu was even more worried. So much time had passed. He did not know whether Little Qing, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Tiger were lucky or not. He did not know where they were now. Hearing third senior brother Yu Wanli's words, Du Xiaofu smiled. However, there was a hint of helplessness and anticipation in his smile. There seems to be something special in front. Yu Wanli looked at the vast sea in front of him. He seemed to have sensed something. It seems to be a little strange. When Du Xiaofu heard this, he looked at the vast sea. There was no one around, but the waves were not small. They rippled like the tide, and there were waves rolling in from afar. Whoosh whoosh, suddenly, many figures appeared in the sky above the vast sea. In the distance, a huge ship appeared in their line of sight. They're fighting. I didn't expect them to fight again. Let's leave this place quickly. We don't want to be affected. Too terrifying. It is said that the mysterious Dragon King, the Flame Carp King, the Golden Condor King, and the Absolute Sword King are all extremely terrifying. The surface of the water is densely packed with demonic beasts. There's no way to get close. This is the 8,000-li long river of the Central Prefecture. It is the world of the demonic beasts in the water. Fortunately, we ran quickly when we saw that the situation was not good. Many people are trapped inside, and it bodes ill rather than well. A moment later, many figures in the air flew to the shore. In the distance, a few huge ships swayed and slowly approached the shore. The faces of the figures were pale, and their hearts were filled with lingering fear. Above the water, the waves surged from afar, becoming more and more intense. Wave after wave crashed into the shore like a tidal wave, causing large splashes of water to splash everywhere. Excuse me, what happened up ahead? Du Xiaofu asked a burly man who looked to be in his 40s hurriedly coming from the front of the water. From the whispers around, Du Xiaofu heard the familiar words of the mysterious Dragon King and the Flame Carp King, which made his heart tremble. When he first came to the Central Prefecture, he was chased everywhere by the mysterious Dragon King. The burly man looked at Du Xiaofu and Yu Wanli, who was beside him. Looking at the two of them, one old and one young, but both of them had extraordinary bearings. He faintly felt a pressure, and his expression changed. He said, "In the water up ahead, the mysterious Dragon King and the Flame Carp King are fighting. There are also many martial king experts like the Golden Condor King and the Absolute Sword King. It has been half a month. In the past half a month, many people who came to the Central Province could only stay on both sides of the river, unable to cross the river. If you want to cross the river, wait for a few days. Recently, the Central Province Long River has not been peaceful. If you are affected by them, it will be disastrous." Is that so? Du Xiaofu's face was filled with joy instead of worry when he heard this. He reckoned that it shouldn't be too much of a problem for him to deal with the mysterious WRM King with his current strength. Not to mention he still had his third senior brother. He was not a gentleman if he did not take revenge. This was also Du Xiaofu's style. Before returning this time, Du Xiaofu had thought that if he had the chance, he would naturally settle the score with the mysterious Dragon King. Thank you. After nodding to the burly man, Du Xiaofu looked sideways at his third senior brother Yuanli and said, Third senior brother, in the central prefecture Long River, there is a scarlet cloud dragon of the Beast King realm at the peak of the Nirvana realm. I have a grudge against it. I have to go look for it. A scarlet cloud dragon of the Beast King realm at the peak of the Nirvana realm is not weak. It is a demonic beast on the heavenly beast ranking. If there is a chance, it would be great if we can capture it. Hearing this, Yuanli's interest was immediately piqued. There were not many demonic beasts on the heavenly beast ranking in the ancient heaven sect. If they could capture a scarlet cloud dragon of the Beast King realm at the peak of the Nirvana realm and bring it back to the Manchu, it would be of great benefit to the younger generation of the ancient heaven sect. Let's go. Let's go look for that scarlet cloud dragon. Du Xiaofu smiled. Suddenly, his figure flashed as he stepped into the air and left. Yuanli was filled with anticipation as he soared into the air and followed Du Xiaofu. Where did these two people come from? They can't be serious. When the burly man heard Du Xiaofu and Yuanli's words, he was shocked. They were both looking for the mysterious Dragon King to settle scores and capture it. It took him a long time to recover from his shock. The vast water surface was vast and the air was salty. The blue waves were vast and majestic. However, at this moment, the waves were roaring continuously. Swoosh, swoosh, in the middle of the water, in the air, there were many figures fleeing in panic. Rumble. Deep in the central region's long river, in the stormy waves above the water, there were ships rocking in the huge waves. They were on the verge of collapse, as if they would sink at any time. Roar. In the boundless water, there were the cries of demonic beasts. Shocking roars resounded. In less than an hour, in the air above the sea, Du Xiaofu and Yuanli saw many demonic beasts and humans fighting fiercely in the water. However, it seemed that they were all scattered underwater demonic beasts and humans. There were not many experts on either side. Although the battle was fierce, it did not attract Du Xiaofu and Yuanli's attention. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation and strength, it would take some time for him to cross the 8,000 miles long central region's long river. However, compared to when he first came to the central region's long river, it was naturally much better. Thinking back to when Du Xiaofu crossed the river, he had to hide and hide along the way. He was chased everywhere and spent a lot of time. Rumble. In the distance, thunderous muffled sounds came from time to time. Along the way, many things were overturned, leaving behind traces of an intense battle. At dusk, the setting sun was like blood, shining a golden light on the water. Many waters were blood-red, with demonic beast and human corpses floating. Many demonic beasts in the water were waiting for an opportunity to devour the corpses. On a messy mountain, the ground was cracked, the rocks were turned into dust, and the towering trees were all broken. Yuanli looked around at the mess for a while, and then said, there should be at least Beast Lord Realm demonic beasts and Martial King Realm cultivators fighting here. There might be Beast King Realm and Martial King Realm cultivators involved. The main battlefield should still be in front. I wonder if it's over. Du Xiaofu pursed his lips. He was familiar with this area of water. Back then, he had hidden on many parts of the 8,000 miles long central region's long river. Continue looking. As Yuanli's voice fell, the profound qi beneath his feet surged, and his figure leapt out again. Swish! A wisp of golden profound qi surged beneath his feet, and Du Xiaofu's figure rose into the air. Wrapped in golden light, he merged with the setting sun. After a few flashes, he disappeared without a trace in the sky. At night, the water rippled, and a bright moon shone on the boundless water. Not long after, the shocking cries of demonic beasts resounded in all directions. At night, the moonlight decorated the sky. The vast water was quiet, vast, and mysterious. The densely packed stars were like sparks in the rippling waves of a body of water, flickering and flickering. On the water, there was a faint sound of waves sweeping and splashing on the beach. The sound of waves splashing on the beach was endless. We are unlucky this time. Fortunately, we escaped quickly when we saw that the situation was bad. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. I didn't expect the Absolute Sword King and Golden Condor King to team up with the Flame Carp King and Stone Turtle King. What should we do? We can't just watch them get the treasure. Such a treasure is hard to come by. If we can get it, we won't have to fear the Mysterious Dragon King anymore. Mysterious Dragon King, Ice Python King, Flame Carp King, Stone Turtle King, Golden Condor King, Absolute Sword King. These people are not to be trifled with. Furthermore, they are on the central region's long river. It will be extremely difficult for us to get the treasure. In the canyon, the sound of waves splashing could be heard from all directions. 4 figures sat cross-legged, and 4 Martial King realm auras were faintly leaking out. Everyone, can you tell us what kind of treasure has appeared in the central region's long river? Suddenly, as the 4 Martial King realm experts were discussing, a faint voice rang out. In the air, 2 voices slowly landed in the canyon. Who is it? Hearing this, the 4 people's eyes trembled, and they immediately stood up. Their auras fluctuated, and 4 pairs of bright eyes stared at the 2 people who had just arrived. Chapter 727. The 4 Martial King realm cultivators felt uneasy as the 2 of them appeared silently. Under the moonlight, the 2 people who had suddenly appeared were an old man and a young man. The old man looked to be in his 60s and was wearing a plain robe. There were traces of spatial fluctuations around him that were difficult to detect. With one look, one could tell that the old man was not weak. However, it was difficult to detect his cultivation aura. The young man was wearing a purple robe and carried a strange broadsword on his back. On his resolute face, there was a faint smile in his clear eyes. However, the smile on the purple-robed young man's face made the 4 Martial King realm cultivators feel a sense of déjà vu. It's him. It's that brat. I remember now. It's that brat. That's right. It's that brat. In a short period of time, the 4 Martial King realm cultivators' faces changed drastically as they immediately recognized the young man. A few months ago, on the central province Long River, the 4 Martial King realm cultivators had seen the purple-robed young man fight with the Mysterious Dragon King. After that, the Mysterious Dragon King and the Golden Condor King chased after the purple-robed young man. The 4 of them had also interfered, but in the end, they were trapped by the talisman array that the purple-robed young man had set up. In the end, when they saw the purple-robed young man enter the Ancient Heaven Sect's new disciple testing area, they, the Solitary Sword King, and the Golden Condor King did not dare to chase after him. Be careful of this brat. Watch out for the talisman array that he has set up. In an instant, the 4 Martial King realm cultivators' auras locked onto Du Xiaofu. The 4 of them focused and there was some fear in their eyes. They knew that the young man in front of them was not to be trifled with. Looking at the 4 Martial King realm cultivators in front of him, Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a smile. Naturally, he would not forget that these 4 Martial King realm cultivators had chased after him on the central province Long River. You still haven't told me what kind of treasure has appeared in the Middle Continent's Long River recently? Du Xiaofu asked the 4 Martial Emperor realm cultivators. I've heard that the relic of a true dragon appeared in the Long River of the central region, but it hasn't been opened yet. However, it's very likely that there's dragon saliva left behind by the true dragon. The Mysterious Dragon King, the Flame Carp King, the Stone Turtle King, the Ice Python King, and the others have already fought among themselves several times. Among the 4 people, the leading man looked at Du Xiaofu and Yuan Li, seeming to have sensed something. His eyes were filled with suspicion and fear as he said, "That's all we know. The 2 of you, it's better for us to mind our own business. How about we part ways here? Brother Shan, that kid has a treasure on him. Don't let him go." A middle-aged man looked at Du Xiaofu. A few months had passed, but he still did not forget that the purple-robed young man before him had a treasure on him. Although he could not do anything to the Solitary Sword King or the Mysterious Dragon King, this young man was not afraid. "Brother Tsang, it's better for us to mind our own business." When the burly man in the lead heard this, he immediately smiled bitterly. It seems that there are still people who are thinking about the treasure. Du Xiaofu looked at the 4 people and smiled. However, I'm also thinking about you. Since we meet again, it's time to settle the score. Kid, you're boasting shamelessly. You're courting death. The middle-aged man who had just spoken raised his eyebrows. He knew that the purple-robed young man before him was not ordinary, but he was not afraid. If it was not for the talisman formation and speed, this kid would have been caught by them long ago. This time, you have nowhere to run. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man stepped on the rock and soared into the sky. His figure was like lightning as he flew towards Du Xiaofu. Boom! In an instant, the middle-aged man's mysterious martial king realm aura surged, causing the air to tremble violently. He waved his hand and a fist print wrapped in runes appeared before Du Xiaofu like lightning. Sigh. Taking a breath, Du Xiaofu's expression did not change. Instead, he smiled slightly. In the next moment, Du Xiaofu's purple robe fluttered. He shook his right arm and stretched out one hand. His 5 fingers were slightly bent and he suddenly clenched his fist. A golden light burst out. It seemed slow, but in fact, it was as fast as lightning. Bang! In the eyes of several people, the 2 fists collided directly. Then, a muffled thunder resounded through the sky. All of this happened too fast. Before some people could see it clearly, they saw the middle-aged man flying horizontally. His body was like a kite with a broken string. He fell directly and violently hit the huge rocks. Rumble! The earth shook and the mountain shook. The entire mountain trembled. Countless cracks appeared on the ground and the rocks collapsed and turned into dust. Puff! In the pile of rocks, the middle-aged man's mouth was dripping with blood. His face was full of surprise, and his eyes were full of shock and fear. The middle-aged man in the black robe had never thought that he, a mysterious martial king realm expert, would be so severely injured in one move. The blood in his body was surging, and his internal organs were almost shattered. His right arm that had just punched out was almost completely shattered. However, his opponent seemed to be showing signs of holding back. Du Xiaofu stood in the air without moving. The mysterious martial king realm expert was now at the same cultivation level as Du Xiaofu. Who else at the same cultivation level could compete with Du Xiaofu? Who was this abnormal? It could be said that if Du Xiaofu had not held back just now, the middle-aged man in the black robe would have been killed instantly. Huff, huff. Seeing that the middle-aged man in the black robe had been severely injured in one move, the remaining 3 people's faces changed in shock. Their eyes were filled with shock. That kid's strength has skyrocketed. We can't compete with him. In a short moment, the 3 of them came back to their senses. The 3 figures were like lightning. The middle-aged man in the lead rushed to the side of the burly man who had been severely injured in one move. He lifted him up and flew away. Stay. An indifferent voice rang out. Then, an old man in a white robe appeared beside the middle-aged man in the lead. Faint spatial ripples rippled around his body. He stretched out his hand and crushed and distorted the space. A handprint covered the sky and landed on the chest of the middle-aged man at an incredible speed. Bang! The sound of the energy fluctuation was not too loud. One could see the body of the burly man leading the group fall in front of you wanly like a bird with broken wings. Following which, the middle-aged man who had been seriously injured by Du Xiaofu was once again violently smashed onto the ground. Bang bang! Almost at the same time, a golden light gushed out in front of the other 2 middle-aged men who had just soared into the air. Layers upon layers of golden light gushed out, and an overbearing aura gushed out along with the mysterious patterns of golden talismans. It turned into a huge shadow of wings, and swept across the 2 men's bodies. Voila! The shadow of the golden light wings swept across, causing the 2 men to be unable to resist. The profound energy halo on their bodies shattered, and they heavily smashed onto the ground. Puff, puff, puff. The 3 of them spat out blood. The impact caused the rocks on the ground to crack and turn into dust. Their faces were incomparably pale and the seriousness in their eyes had turned into shock and fear. Du Xiaofu's body was in front of the 4 men. His clear eyes were filled with coldness as he said, "I didn't ask you to leave. You'd better behave yourselves. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." You can try and see if I can kill all of you on the spot. What exactly do you want? The leading burly man stood up. He wiped the blood at the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. His pale face was filled with fear as he looked at the old man in the white robe. The fact that the old man could easily trample him with a single move made the leading burly man understand that it would be an easy task for the two of them to kill the four of them. I've always been a vengeful person. The four of you, hand over your Qianquan bags, talisman weapons and spiritual weapons. Du Xiaofu had a smile on his face as he spoke as if it was a matter of course. The other three middle-aged men also struggled to get up. The four of them looked at Du Xiaofu and Yuan Li. Their gazes were complicated and filled with fear and dread. Although the four of them were unwilling, they knew that the young man was not a kind person. Back then, he even dared to drink the blood of the mysterious Dragon King. In the end, the four of them pondered and could only take out their Qianquan bags and the talisman weapons and spiritual weapons nourished by the God's Gate in their bodies and hand them over to Du Xiaofu. The four of them all had incomparable pain on their faces. However, compared to their lives, worldly possessions seemed to be a little more insignificant. Du Xiaofu waved his hand and a wave of profound energy gushed out. A suction force surged and took the Qianquan bags and talisman weapons into his hand. His gaze was somewhat complicated as he looked at the four of them. We've already handed over our talisman weapons, spiritual weapons and Qianquan bags. So you should let us go. The leading man looked at Du Xiaofu and said with a complicated gaze. A few months ago, they were still able to hunt down the young man in front of them. However, at this moment, they were already in the bag and could not withstand a single blow. This change was too fast. I didn't agree to let you go. Du Xiaofu said to the four of them. He had no intention of letting them go. What else do you want to do? Hearing this, the four of them became even more fearful. The four of them clustered together and their auras fluctuated. Once there was an unforeseen event, they could only fight with their lives. Junior brother, there's no use keeping these four trash alive. Since they dared to attack our ancient heaven sect, just kill them. Yuan Li glanced at the four of them. Although the status of the elders in the Manchu was not high, in the outside world, he naturally did not care about a few martial kings. Ancient heaven sect. Hearing Elder Yuan Li's words, the four martial kings trembled as if they had been struck by lightning. Chapter 728. The three words, Ancient Heaven Sect, were like a huge mountain pressing down on the hearts of the three people. You are from the Ancient Heaven Sect. The four people's faces changed and the fear in their eyes intensified. If they had known that the purple-robed youth was from the Ancient Heaven Sect, they would not have dared to chase after him. In front of the Ancient Heaven Sect, they were like ants in front of an elephant. They could not fight against the Ancient Heaven Sect at all. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. He did not expect the name of the Ancient Heaven Sect to be able to shock the four people to this extent. Little junior brother, what should we do with the four of them? Yuan Li asked Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu nodded at Yuan Li. He then looked at the four people and said, Now, there are only two choices in front of you. First, follow me as my servant for 10 years. After 10 years, you will regain your freedom. Second, I will kill you on the spot. When the four people heard this, they looked at each other. They were martial kings after all. Now that they were going to be servants, it was naturally difficult for them to accept it. However, it was a matter of life and death. The four of them knew that they could not escape. Even if they could, they knew that they would not be able to escape from the powerful Ancient Heaven Sect. The four of them looked at each other with complicated expressions. After a while, they looked at Du Xiaofu's sharp eyes and knelt down on one knee. They bowed and said, We are willing to be your servants. Greetings, master. Get up, just call me third young master from now on. Du Xiaofu saw this and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. After a while, the group sat cross-legged on a wide rock in the canyon. Du Xiaofu found out from the four people that the leading man was called Shan Yuxiu. He had just stepped into the martial king realm and was at the Nirvana realm. The middle-aged man who was severely injured by Du Xiaofu was called San Yi. He was at the mysterious martial king realm. The other two were called Yan Huai and Yu Qiji. One of them was at the profound level of the martial king realm, while the other was at the peak of the martial king realm. From the four, Du Xiaofu and Yu Wanli learned that a few months ago, these martial emperor realm cultivators had gathered at the middle continent's Long River. They had unintentionally heard the news that there were the remains of a true dragon in the middle continent's Long River, and the eerie ancient seal was only an interlude. In the end, they were unable to pursue and kill Du Xiaofu. After obtaining the treasures, they all returned to the central region's Long River, waiting and searching for the true dragon's relics. Recently, there were finally signs of the true dragon relic, which led to several great battles. The first few battles were all chaotic battles. The mysterious Dragon King, the Ice Python King, the Flame Carp King, the Stone Turtle King, the Golden Condor King, and the Absolute Sword King were all involved. Other than that, there were also many small and medium-sized forces and experts who participated. However, their strength was slightly weaker than the mysterious Dragon King, the Solitary Sword King, the Golden Condor King, the Flame Carp King, and the Stone Turtle King. However, recently, the Golden Condor King, the Solitary Sword King, the Stone Turtle King, and the Flame Carp King had joined forces for some reason, forcing the Ice Python King and the mysterious Dragon King to retreat. Many small and medium-sized forces and experts were greatly affected. The weaker ones no longer dared to step into the middle continent's Long River. Chan Yuxiu, Song Yi, Yan Huai, and Yu Qiji saw that the situation was not good, so they retreated in advance. They wanted to wait for an opportunity to avoid the mysterious Dragon King, the Flame Carp King, and the Absolute Sword King's limelight. However, in the end, the four of them did not expect to meet Du Xiaofu here. From the four of them, Du Xiaofu found out that the mysterious sealed space on the middle continent's Long River had never appeared again. It had disappeared without a trace. So those two guys are called the Solitary Sword King and the Golden Condor King. Du Xiaofu's eyes glowed with a golden brilliance. He had inadvertently learned from Chan Yuxiu and the others that the two Martial King realm experts who had chased after him the most ruthlessly were called the Golden Condor King and the Extinctive Sword King. Both of them were Martial King realm experts at the peak of the Nirvana realm. They were both extraordinary people with a reputation. Real dragon's relic. There is indeed a chance for the dragon's saliva to exist. Listening to the four of them, Yu Wanli's eyes moved slightly. He was also very interested. Dragon's saliva. Du Xiaofu mumbled softly. Rumor had it that the dragon's saliva was left behind by the real dragon. If the level was high enough, it could allow the dragons to evolve into real dragons. It was the most precious treasure among the demonic beasts. To human cultivators, the dragon's saliva was definitely a precious treasure. If the news of the dragon's saliva spread to the ancient heaven sect, it would be enough for them to send many experts to search for it. Little junior brother, the dragon's saliva is a treasure. If it really exists, we can't miss it, Yu Wanli said to Du Xiaofu. Since we have encountered it, we naturally can't miss it. Du Xiaofu smiled. Not to mention the dragon's saliva, he still had to settle the score with the mysterious Dragon King, the Golden Condor King, and the Solitary Sword King. After that, Du Xiaofu returned the talisman weapon, spiritual weapon, and Qianquan bag to Chan Yuxiu, Song Yi, Yan Huai, and Yu Qiji. He said, "The four of you should heal yourselves first. Tomorrow morning, we will search for the real dragon's relic." The next morning, the sun rose and instantly lit up the cliff. In the blink of an eye, the clouds above the boundless water region disappeared. The continuous stretch of water covered a patch of green. When the bright sunlight shone on the vast water region, the water was charming. "Third young master, what are you?" In the morning, when Chan Yuxiu saw Du Xiaofu's face covered by a black veil, he asked curiously. "We should meet the Golden Condor King, the mysterious Dragon King, and the others at the real dragon's relic. It's best if I don't expose myself." Du Xiaofu lifted the black veil and smiled at Chan Yuxiu and the other three. Hearing this, Song Yi, who had been severely injured by Du Xiaofu the day before, recovered a little. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Third young master, I'm afraid they will recognize the item on your back." "It's okay. They probably won't think it's me. Du Xiaofu smiled. There was no way to hide the purple-gold heavenly tower on his back. He said to the four, "Moreover, the Golden Condor King, the Mysterious Dragon King, and the others won't think I'm with you. Even if they find out, it's nothing." Whoosh whoosh. After a while, the 6 figures soared into the sky and disappeared into the sea region in a few flashes. Roar. Countless demonic beasts roared in the lush green water, causing waves to surge. Above, many demonic beasts were entrenched. 4 figures stood there, all of them middle-aged. One wore a golden robe, while the other wore a gray-white robe. There were 2 others. One wore a crimson robe, while the other had bulging muscles under his clothes. His exposed shoulders were covered in green ancient runes that were extremely eye-catching. The true dragon relic should be opening soon. The mysterious Dragon King must be nearby, waiting for an opportunity. The middle-aged man in the golden robe had deep eyes and a high-nose bridge. He looked at the special waves in the water region ahead with some anticipation. He was the Golden Condor King, who was rather famous in the Central Plains. The Solitary Sword King wore a gray-white robe. He was tall and slender, and what made him memorable was the numerous lifelike long swords embroidered on his robe. Hearing that, the Solitary Sword King looked at the sea region ahead and raised his eyebrows slightly. His eyes were filled with radiance, as if a sword was about to shoot out. He said softly, "The mysterious Dragon King is difficult to deal with. We have to be careful. The Ice Python King is already injured, so there's nothing to be afraid of. If the true dragon relic opens, we have to be wary of the mysterious Dragon King. There's nothing to be afraid of. With the 4 of us working together, the mysterious Dragon King can't do anything but run." The man in the crimson robe looked at the Solitary Sword King and the Golden Condor King and said, "According to the agreement, if we see the dragon saliva, the 4 of us will split it equally. You humans don't have much credibility. I hope you can keep your promise when the time comes." "Don't worry. Since we've already formed an alliance, we'll definitely keep our promise," said the Solitary Sword King. Roar, rumble. The demonic beasts in the surroundings suddenly roared even louder, and there were endless sonic booms. Many demonic beasts appeared in the sea region in the distance again. The 2 groups of demonic beasts began to fight, causing waves to surge. Many of the waves were dyed red by blood. The mysterious Dragon King and the Ice Python King are here. The Stone Turtle King with bulging muscles and green ancient runes on his shoulders said softly. His forehead was slightly protruding, and his eyes were exceptionally deep. There are still many humans who want to take advantage of the situation. Looks like we have to get rid of all of them to avoid trouble later. The Flame Carp King in the crimson robe said in a deep voice. His eyes were slightly red, and then a low roar came from his mouth. Roar. As the Flame Carp King roared, countless demonic beasts roared in the distance. The demonic beasts in the water emerged from the water region and covered the vast water region. Do it. Think of a way to get closer. Deal with these demonic beasts in the water. Vaguely, there were loud shouts from humans in the distance, and a few huge ships appeared in the distance. The huge ships were filled with rippling radiance, and there were many figures standing on the deck. Many pairs of eyes shone with sharp radiance in the night sky, and streaks of spiritual weapon energy attacks swept in all directions. Rumble, huge waves surged into the sky, and the huge ships shook as energy swept out. "Bastard, you're courting death." There were loud shouts from the shaking ships, and streaks of rune energy attacks swept out, bombarding the demonic beasts in the water region. "Kill all these humans." The demonic beasts roared. There were 2 groups of demonic beasts in the water, but at this moment, they were more disgusted with the humans. They roared and attacked, and their huge bodies rose above the water surface. Runes covered their bodies, and their ferocious auras surged. Bang, bang, bang. The battle in the sea region was intense, and the vast energy covered the sky and covered the earth, illuminating a large area of the water region. The waves surged into the sky, and there were many demonic beasts roaring in all directions. There are more updates. Today's extra update should be released at around 11 o'clock. Chapter 729. Attack. Attack with all your might. Everyone retreat. Amidst the beast horde, there was a huge gray ship swaying in the raging waves. On the third deck of the ship, a man in his 40s shouted. Miserable cries could be heard from the surrounding sea. Many figures stumbled out of the huge ships. There were also people who were blasted into the water in midair. Immediately, the demonic beasts in the water leaped out of the water and opened their bloody mouths. Their bodies were bitten into pieces and swallowed into their mouths. Loud shouts resounded. Dazzling sword radiance, saber radiance, and energy runes covered the sky, blocking and killing a large number of demonic beasts. In the intense battle, blood dyed the surrounding waters red. The huge gray ship swayed. The middle-aged man had a gray scarf tied around his long black hair. He had a muscular body and his gaze was deep. He did not hold back at all as he unleashed his full martial lord cultivation to defend against the attacks of the demonic beasts in the water. Rumble, the densely packed demonic beasts in the water surrounded the huge gray ship. It was as if there was a layer of light covering the ship. Huge waves appeared on the surrounding water. Although the ship wanted to quickly retreat from the battle, it was blocked by countless huge demonic beasts in the water and could not escape. First head, we are surrounded. What should we do? On the deck, the faces of many people were solemn. We shouldn't have been so close. We can only use all our strength to fight our way out. The middle-aged man shouted. As the first head of the Long River Escort Agency, he knew that he had made a mistake this time. He did not resist the temptation of the treasure and allowed the ship to get so close. Now they were in deep danger and could not escape. Bang bang! A few huge demonic beasts in the water, all of which had the aura of the Beast Lord realm, slammed into the huge gray ship and broke the light covering the ship. Rumble! Huge waves surged and the huge gray ship swayed from the huge waves. In the end, the ship was forcefully stabilized, but the ship's body was already cracked. First head, we can't take the second hit. If we hit again, we will fall apart. On the deck, someone shouted. The situation had reached the most critical point. If there's really no other way, we'll abandon the ship and escape first. Every single one of us that can escape is one of us. The middle-aged man shouted. His body was wrapped in Xian Qi as he used all his strength to kill the surrounding demonic beasts. He was the head of the Long River Escort Agency, the Marquis of Waves, Zhou Tianyang. Kill all these humans who want to fish in troubled waters. In front of the giant ship, waves of water violently trembled and swept down like a torrential storm. Then, under the shocked gazes of many people, a huge fish leaped out of the water. This giant fish was enormous, like a small mountain. Its entire body was covered in runes, and it had a pair of wings on its back. The sharp fangs in its mouth were like that of a devil's, causing the surrounding water to surge into the sky. It was extremely shocking and terrifying. A devil sparrow fish with 1 foot in the Beast King realm. The Marquis of Charon's gaze turned serious. The devil sparrow fish was a terrifying existence. He had been at odds with the Marquis of Charon ever since. In the blink of an eye, the devil sparrow fish had already attacked Zhou Tianyang. A beam of rune light shot out from its mouth like a thunderbolt, causing waves to surge into the sky. It was fierce and powerful. The Marquis of Churning Waves, Zhou Tianyang, was unable to dodge. If he were to escape, the giant ship under his feet would be directly smashed into pieces. Zhou Tianyang snorted and clenched his teeth. He immediately sent out a fist seal. Bang bang! In the blink of an eye, the two energy attacks collided, causing the giant ship to tremble and sink into the water. The surrounding space rustled as countless waves surged into the sky. Thump thump! Zhou Tianyang's body was forced back 3 steps. The deck of the giant ship cracked, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Zhou Tianyang, you are no match for me. I have long wanted to kill you. This time, you have come to seek death. The devil sparrow fish roared. Its huge body rose into the sky and was about to attack again. Something's not right. Suddenly, the huge devil sparrow fish seemed to have sensed something. It was alarmed and quickly retreated. It had a bad premonition. A figure silently appeared in the sky. He was wearing a cloak, and his face was covered by a black aura. He wore a purple robe and carried something that looked like a broadsword on his back. He appeared silently. Where did this human come from? You are courting death. The devil sparrowfish's eyes were cold. It opened its mouth and spat out a fong. This sharp fong was only about a foot long. It was sharp and fierce. Then, it shone brightly and the runes were dazzling as it rapidly enlarged. Numerous talisman markings appeared on the sharp fangs, and an extremely powerful and terrifying aura spread out. Immediately, it shot explosively towards the person whose face was covered by the black veil that had appeared without a sound. Evil creature! Under the black veil, a faint voice sounded. There was a hint of coldness in the voice. Then his arm shook. In a short moment, a hand seal was formed. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. A lightning finger seal condensed. Swoosh! The finger seal swept out from the black-veiled person's hand. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Lightning flashed from the fingertip and directly destroyed the sharp fong into broken runes. Chi! Then, the lightning finger seal had yet to dissipate. It was filled with a domineering and destructive aura. Under the fearful eyes of the devil sparrowfish, it fell directly between its eyebrows. Swoosh, swoosh! The lightning finger seal pierced through the rune defense of the devil sparrowfish's body like lightning. It pierced through its eyebrows and a bloody hole appeared at the back of its head. Rumble! The scarlet eyes of the huge devil sparrowfish froze in fear. Then, everything came to a standstill. The gigantic devil sparrowfish's body fell straight back into the water, stirring up countless huge waves. The devil sparrowfish was killed by a finger. Its blood dyed the sea red. A pungent smell of blood spread. It had died a tragic and unjust death. After the devil sparrowfish was killed by a finger, the surroundings seemed to have calmed down. On the giant black ship, many people's gazes were trembling. Many people were trembling as a chill spread out from their bones. The devil sparrowfish, which had 1 foot in the Beast King realm, couldn't even withstand a single blow. What powerful strength! On the huge ship, Lord Churang was also shocked as he looked at the mysterious person who had appeared in front of him. Boom! The person with the black veil landed on the deck of the huge ship. A powerful and domineering aura surged, causing the huge ship to shake. Many people on the ship inadvertently took a few steps back. Then, the person with the black veil didn't say a word. An ancient and domineering aura fluctuated from his body. His purple robe fluttered slightly as lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky above the sea. It was as if a storm was about to descend on this part of the water, causing the surrounding space to darken. Boom! In the next moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky. The person with the black veil threw a punch at the water. On the fist, streaks of lightning shot out from the water. It was dazzling and the rumbling of thunder resounded in the water. Then, under the shocked gazes of the people on the huge ship, the fist landed on the water and turned into countless silver lightning bolts that wreaked havoc. With an unstoppable force, it destroyed countless demonic beasts in the water around the huge ship. Huge waves rolled in the water. In the distance, huge demonic beasts were attacked by lightning bolts and floated to the surface. The surrounding waves surged violently and were terrifying. They hurriedly escaped. All of you run. After doing all this, the person with the black veil soared into the sky and went deep into the fierce battle of the demonic beasts in the water. On the huge ship, the people came back to their senses after a while. Retreat! Quick! Zhou Tianyang shouted and controlled the huge ship to escape quickly. Looking at the back of the person with the black veil, he frowned. It seemed like he had seen him before. Third young master, do you know those people? In the sky, 6 figures appeared. Shan Yuxiu asked Du Xiaofu. The person with the black veil was Du Xiaofu. Hearing Shan Yuxiu's question, he said to Shan Yuxiu, "They are some friends that I used to know. Since I saw them, I would like to lend a hand." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Shan Yuxiu was slightly moved. In his mind, the young man in front of him was fierce and cruel. At this moment, he seemed to feel something different. Rumble, roar. In the vast water area, the sound of energy was endless. Countless dorsal fins floated to the surface of the water. Numerous astonishingly huge demonic beasts in the water filled the entire water region, stirring up monstrous waves as they roared and hissed. The fierce battle was extremely chaotic. There were demonic beasts killing other demonic beasts. There were humans and demonic beasts fighting. Waves of shocking auras spread out, making people tremble in fear. Third young master, it should not be far ahead. Looking at the situation, we should be able to enter the true dragon relic. Song Yi said to Du Xiaofu. He frowned as he looked at the huge ships and the experts of the human race in the distance. The vast water region had been dyed red by the blood. Humans, go to hell. The sound waves rumbled, resounding through the water area. Among the sea of demonic beasts below, a huge demonic shark wrapped in runes jumped out of the water. It stirred up waves like a tsunami, causing the space to tremble violently. The huge demonic shark soared into the sky like a flying dragon. It opened its bloody mouth and tried to swallow the 6 people in the sky. A terrifying aura gushed out from the bloody mouth, like a tornado vortex, capable of sucking people down from the air. A beast at the peak of the Beast Lord realm dares to come and seek death. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.